What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was not allowed at his own parents' funeral? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like instant ramen in a cup, and I really like the ramen at Ichiraku ramen shop. I dislike waiting time it takes to cook. My hobby is tasting all the different kinds of ramen cups. And my future dream is to be the greatest Hokage. Then the whole village will stop disrespecting me and start treating me like I'm somebody. Somebody important. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I hate a lot of things, and I don't particularly like anything. What I have is not a dream but an ambition. I'm going to restore my clan and kill a certain someone. During the survival test, Naruto's stomach growled. This is no big deal. I can go eating for days, for weeks. This is no big deal. His stomach growled again. Sasuke looks at Naruto and offer him his food. Here, Sakura and Naruto was shocked. But Sasuke-kun, you heard what Kakashi-sensei said. She looks around. It's against the rules. Kakashi is gone. If Naruto doesn't eat, he'll be a liability. And that hurts the team and jeopardizes the mission. Sasuke stated. After a few moments of persuading, Naruto gets fed by his teammates. A large pop of smoke suddenly appeared with Kakashi in the middle. You broke the rule. Any last words? You said this was a team and that's why Sakura-chan and started Naruto. We're all on this team and we're all in this together, exclaimed Sasuke. On the road to the land of waves, Sasuke fought against the demon brothers while Kakashi hid in the trees to observe and Naruto froze on spot. Kakashi then comes out of hiding and knocked them both out. Naruto. Sorry I didn't help you right away. I didn't think you'd freeze up like that, said Kakashi before he walked away leaving Sasuke and Naruto there. Hey, Sasuke called out. Yeah? Naruto asked. You're not hurt, are you? You scary cat, Sasuke taunted with a smirk. In the forest doing tree walking. Both Naruto and Sasuke are practicing in the forest while Sakura is guarding Tazuna. Naruto recalls the advice Sakura gave him and prepares to climb. Hey, Naruto. Naruto loses his concentration and fell face first. Hey, what's the big idea, Teme? You know, Sasuke started off nervously. You asked Sakura for advice earlier. He turns away. What did she say? Naruto grinned before his face got serious. I'm not telling you. Sasuke's eyebrow began twitching. On the bridge fighting Haku. Naruto wakes up and sees Sasuke standing in front of him with Haku on the ground. You always get in the way, Naruto. It never fails. You beat him, Sasuke, exclaimed Naruto. He then saw the state Sasuke was in and his smile slipped. His whole body was covered in senbon as he stood protective over Naruto. Sasuke turns around and Naruto was shocked to see the blood coming out of Sasuke's mouth. You should see the look on your face. You look like a total doby. He took a moment to comprehend what happened before speaking. Why did you save me? Naruto couldn't get over the fact Sasuke did risk his life for him. I don't know why, I just did. Sasuke recalled all of the memories he had with Naruto and a smile broke out on his face. I hated you. Naruto then got off the ground. Then why? I didn't ask for you to save me. Sasuke slightly chuckled before answering. There wasn't any time to think. My body just moved on its own. Sasuke then fell backward as Naruto rushed to catch him. My brother, he's still out there, and I swore I would one day kill him. He looks at Naruto. Don't let your dreams die. His body went limp, and the Kyuubi chakra began leaking out of Naruto. During the second round of the Chunin exams in the Forest of Death. Having been caught in a genjutsu by the Aim Genin, Team 7 and Kabuto began fighting against the clones. After several hours of fighting which resulted in Naruto's team to being on their last leg, the Aim Genins revealed themselves. You're the brat who cut me up. Time I pay you back with interest. He held a kunai out in his hand and raised it up. Looks like your plan worked, Naruto. Suddenly, a voice appeared from behind and when the Aim team turned around, it was Sasuke, Sakura, and Kabuto. Confused, the Aim team looked at the team in front of them only for them to unhinge back as Naruto's clones. Naruto and his team began explaining the plan to the Aim Genins. After they were done, Naruto took a step forward only to fall on his knee. You've used up too much chakra, Naruto, said Sasuke. Don't worry, I got this. But instead of complying, Naruto charge forward and deliver a kick across their faces. And let you take all the fun pant, I don't think so Teme. Everyone was stunned that Naruto still had the energy to fight, let alone move, since it's the 5th day. Whoa, is this Naruto? Sasuke wondered. Inside the tower and before the start of the preliminary exam. Since there's too many that passed cough, we're going to be holding a preliminary exam, said Hayate Gecko. But before we begin, cough, if there's anyone who would like to leave, now would be the time. Is he serious? Like there's any way someone going to? A sudden pain soon came from his neck as Sasuke steel himself. Sakura saw how much Sasuke was hurting and begged him to give up. Naruto watched the whole interaction in curiosity and confusion. Just as Sakura was about to raise her hand, Kabuto beat her to the punch. After getting an earful from Naruto, he then left, but the Hokage and Jonin became suspicious. As Kabuto leaves, Sakura began to raise her hand again, only for it to be held down by Sasuke. Don't you dare! Sasuke sent her a look that said he'll be staying no matter what. It doesn't concern you. I want to fight the strongest. And all of them are in this room. You don't know when to quit Teme. Naruto finally butted in. Can't you see she cares about you? Sasuke turns around and face him. Naruto, you're one of the ones I want to fight the most. He smirked at Naruto as Naruto just looked shocked. During the 3rd round of the Chunin exams, as they wait for Sasuke. After an impressive, yet anticlimactic, match of Shikamaru versus Temari, the crowd began getting restless as Sasuke has yet to arrive. Even Naruto was getting frustrated, though not surprising since he lacks patience. Man, I swear, if he doesn't show, I'll kill him. I swear I'll kill him, Naruto vowed. After several moments and near the end of the waiting time, just as Genma was about to call the match, the wind and leaves pick up and Kakashi and Sasuke arrived via leaf body flicker. And you are? Asked Genma, though he already knew the answer. I'm Sasuke. Sasuke Uchiha. His face remained as stoic as always. The crowd roared in approval and Shikamaru chuckled at his entrance. Naruto, meanwhile, just has a big smile on his face. About time you show up Teme. I thought you'd chicken out. Naruto taunted. Sasuke scoffed. So what about you? Did you win? There was a smirk on his face as if he already knew the answer. You know it, Naruto boasted. Sasuke chuckled. Don't get too full of yourself. You're still Adobe, he teased. Naruto and Sasuke stared at each other and grinned as Kakashi asked Genma if they were late. After Genma told them Sasuke was just on time, Sasuke turned to face Gaara, making everyone follow his gaze. Without turning his gaze away, just make sure you don't lose to this guy, said Naruto. Still staring at Gaara, got it. Naruto then turns to look at Sasuke and recalled what he said to him during the preliminaries. Hey Sasuke. Sasuke turns to face Naruto. Don't lose, because I want to fight you myself. He grinned, with a still impassive face, got it. Though everyone could tell Sasuke was looking forward to their match. During the invasion arc fighting Gaara, after managing to land a hit on Gaara due to an explosive kunai behind the tail, Naruto was flung backward due to Gaara's tail. Sasuke appeared behind him just as Naruto was about to hit the tree. Both of them were exhausted and Sasuke was covered in black markings. While glaring at Gaara, listen Naruto. You have to save Sakura if it's the last thing you do. Naruto turns to look at him. Once you got her, I want you to run as fast as you can. Naruto remembered how Sasuke took the hit for him at the bridge during the wave mission. Naruto couldn't believe what Sasuke was about to do and knew what he was planning. Sasuke, you, but words just wouldn't come out. Wincing in pain, I can hold in here pant. Just a little, he winced, bit longer. He struggles to stand up as he faces his opponent. I lost everything once. I won't let that happen again. He glared ahead. I won't let my friends die in front of me. Your friends? Naruto asked. He then remembers how Sakura stood in front of Sasuke while Gaara was coming in Kakashi's words while facing Zabuza in the mist. Naruto slowly gets up as he realized what true strength was. He then remembered Haku's words on how someone will truly become strong. Gathering up a massive amount of chakra, he summoned over 2,000 of clones, stunning everyone. Is this Naruto? Sasuke wondered, comparing the Naruto in front of him with the Naruto that fell for a trap and ended up hanging upside down and experiencing Kakashi's 1,000 years of death. His clones all then converged on Gaara and begin a series of kicks, punches, and just about anything he can throw at him. Gaara was then knocked out of the trees and landed on the ground with his sand coming off of him in his tailed beast mode. Deciding to end he then transformed into Shukaku and managed to pop all of Naruto's clones in the process. Just before Shukaku's sand crushed him, Naruto performed the summoning jutsu and brought forth Gamabunta. Sasuke can only look on with a stunned face and wondered how Naruto was able to do that. Moments before Sasuke left Konoha. After his battle against Orochimaru's elite bodyguards, Sasuke returned to his room and began to pack. After he finished packing, he stood in front of a photo of Team 7, the team he thinks of as a family. He recalls what the four-sound nin said to him before they left him an invitation to join Otto. Once the curse mark spread throughout your body, your former self will be gone. Never again to return, said one of them with the silver hair. In exchange for power, you will be tethered to Orochimaru-sama. All freedom will be lost to you. To gain one thing, another will be lost. What is your purpose in life? Living in this trash of a village and playing ninja with your friends? Surely you haven't forgotten about Itachi Uchiha? Asked the female in the group with reddish-pink hair. You mustn't forget about your purpose. Staying in this pathetic village is only a hindrance to you. Sever your ties to this village. And when you do that, there'll be no limits to your power. Remember your purpose? And with that, they quickly left. My purpose? Sasuke pondered. Images of his clan being massacred flashed through his head with Itachi killing one after another. He gritted his teeth and clenched his hands. He then focused his attention back to the picture in front of him. Images of his time as a member of Team 7 appeared in his head as he remembered all of the moments they had together. Who they fought, what they went through, the bonds they forged with one another. It calmed him down a little. But then an image of Itachi appeared. If you wish to kill me, then hate me. Only then will you achieve the powers to defeat me. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at his brother's words and then remembered his battle against him not too long ago. After finding Naruto, Sasuke saw Itachi and instantly charged a Chidori and headed straight for Itachi. Itachi effortlessly grabbed his waist and deflected the wall, leaving a giant hole behind. He then snapped Sasuke's wrist and kicked him toward the wall. Sasuke got up and charged at his brother again only to get the same result. Itachi then slammed Sasuke to the wall and whispered in his ear. You don't have enough hate. And you know something? He leaned in. You never will. And before Sasuke could comment, Itachi used Tsukuyomi and made him relive the Uchiha massacre once more. Sasuke began shaking in anger as he saw how weak he was. He couldn't beat Haku at the bridge. He couldn't do anything when Orochimaru attacked them. He couldn't defeat Gaara to save Konoha. He couldn't beat his brother after training years for it. He couldn't beat Aoi Rokusho and his Thunder Sword. And he couldn't beat Naruto, the dead last of the class. My purpose is to kill my brother by whatever means necessary. He then flipped the picture down and left. At the Valley of the End, when Naruto caught up with Sasuke, he thought it would be easy to bring him back. He thought that Sasuke's curse mark was corrupting him, but it wasn't. After exchanging punches in which Naruto saw how different Sasuke was, as in much stronger now, he began wondering whether or not the times they spent together on Team 7 was for nothing. They weren't meaningless, Sasuke stated. One thing was worthwhile. Our friendship. We became the best friends. Then why? Why are we fighting? Shouted Naruto. I just told you. Because we're friends, it's much more meaningful to destroy you. And with that, Sasuke charged toward Naruto. Their taijutsu spar became one-sided soon. With the power of the cruise mark, Sasuke's strength was amplified, allowing him to quickly overwhelm Naruto. Sasuke soon began using ninjutsu, which Naruto managed to narrow escape several times. Wanting to end this as soon as possible, they began charging their signature technique, Chidori for Sasuke and the Rasengan for Naruto. The explosion caused by the two attack blew the two of them away from each other. Sasuke was seething at the fact Naruto was able to match his Chidori at full power. Naruto on the other hand saw how serious Sasuke was being at killing him. Sasuke began drawing the power of the mark, causing black markings to cover his body. Not wanting to give Naruto a chance to fully recover, Sasuke came at him once more. Soon, Sasuke held Naruto up by his throat and had a Chidori charged and ready to deliver the final blow. Just before he did, Naruto called on the Kyuubi's power, allowing him to deflect the Chidori away from a vital spot. The power-emitting form Naruto, when he called on the Kyuubi, blew Sasuke backward and infuriated him. "Alright, I had enough of this. Just what the heck are you?" Sasuke asked. "I'm your friend, and I'm not letting you go to the likes of Orochimaru. I'll break every bones in your body before that happens." With the Kyuubi's chakra, his speed, strength, and reflexes were amplified. Naruto's skills in taijutsu was now greater than Sasuke's. Even with 2 tomos in each Sharingan eyes, Sasuke was unable to keep up with Naruto's speed. He was thrown into rocks and almost knocked out by the sheer impact and beating he had received. Naruto appeared right in front of him seconds later, lifting him up by his shirt. "Now you listen here, Sasuke," he growled. "If you don't come to your sense, I'll break every bones in your body and drag you back to the village. So get up, Sasuke." Regaining his bearings, "Just shut up for once," Sasuke growled. "What the heck, do you know it? It's not like you ever had a family in the first place. You were on your own right from the beginning. What makes you so sure you know anything about it, huh?" Sasuke shouted. "I'm suffering now because I had those ties. How on earth can you possibly understand how it feels to lose all that?" With renewed strength, Sasuke tackled Naruto and they both fell into the water. "It's true. I don't know what it's like to have a parent or a brother. But he remembers his time spent with Iruka. Whenever I'm with Iruka-sensei, I wonder if that's what it's like to have a father. And when I'm with you," memories of Sasuke and him flashed in his head. "I wonder if this is what it's like to have a brother." "Why, Naruto? Why would you go so far for me?" Sasuke asked quietly. "Because this is the first time I've ever had a bond like this. That's why I'll do everything I can to stop you." Naruto spoke honestly. "It's too late, Naruto. I just can't turn back." Putting on his headband, he assumed a taijutsu stance. "If that's the way it is, I'll just have to sever that bond, right now." Sasuke's Sharingan changed and is now with 3 tomos. With his new eyes, he was able to counter and parry Naruto's attacks. Even with his strength amplified by the Kyuubi, Naruto was still unable to get past Sasuke's defenses. The battle quickly turned in Sasuke's power as he once again dominated Naruto in battle. Hoping to finish Naruto once and for all, he performed the Peregrine Falcon drop right after hitting Naruto with fire release, Dragon Fire. They hit their mark, but soon the Kyuubi sent even more chakra into Naruto, allowing him to take version 1 Jinchuriki form. The tides turned once more and Naruto held the upper hand. Since it couldn't be helped, Sasuke drew more power of the curse mark, allowing him to obtain Cursed Seal of Heaven Stage 2. Both Naruto and Sasuke can see that the power they were using were taxing on their bodies, therefore decided to end it with one final technique. With the Kyuubi's chakra, Naruto's Rasengan turned vermilion color while Sasuke's Chidori turned black. With an unspoken signal, the two charged head-on. Their technique caused a black sphere to appear and engulf down. When it was gone, Naruto was on the ground while Sasuke was standing a few feet away from him. After a while, Sasuke left. Kakashi arrived minutes later. While heading toward Orochimaru, Sasuke recalls his memories about his family. He then remembers his brother's words. "Like me, you may be one of the ones to unlock the secrets of the Mangekyo Sharingan. But there is a catch." Sasuke turns his head toward the place he left Naruto. At that same moment, Naruto woke up and looks toward Sasuke's direction. "Take the life of your best friend. You must kill him." "No, brother. Just because you said it doesn't mean I'm going to listen. I will get my hands on that power. But not the way you want me to. I'm going to do it my way," Sasuke inwardly vowed. At Konoha Hospital after the failed mission. "I see. That's good," said Naruto. Shikamaru was looking at him out of the corner of his eye. He had just finished telling Naruto how the others were doing. "So I'm guessing Sasuke is." "Yeah," Naruto said quietly. "Sasuke is gone." Just then Sakura and Tsunade walked in. "Sakura." He didn't look at her. "I'm sorry, Sakura." "Why are you saying sorry for?" Sakura asked, avoiding the subject. "Look." She walked over toward the window and pulls the shades away. "It's a beautiful day outside. I'm not going to give up. I'll bring Sasuke back no matter what." "Naruto. It's okay. Really. If I say I'm going to do it, it means I will. Don't forget, my nindo is I never go back on my words," Naruto exclaimed. Everyone looked at him with smiles. "Thank you, Naruto." After everyone had left, Naruto lay in bed planning on how to bring Sasuke back. Just then, there was a loud crash outside his window. Wanting to see what the commotion was, he opens the window and saw Jiraiya. Jiraiya began explaining how things will be different from now on. The Akatsuki were on the move and they have only 3 years before they came after Naruto. Of course, Naruto refused to do that since it meant not rescuing Sasuke. Jiraiya then explains how Orochimaru had to move on to someone else because Sasuke arrived late, therefore they now have time. He then told Naruto to forget about Sasuke and how similar Orochimaru and Sasuke were, which Naruto flat out rejects since he believes Sasuke is his friend. Jiraiya states it was his friend that put him in this condition. Still, Naruto stubbornly refused. If you insist on going after Sasuke, then you'll receive no help from me. I'll assign the Anbu Black Ops to watch you to ensure you don't leave the village, stated Jiraiya, causing Naruto to gasp. You're not an ordinary kid. You got something inside of you that's the Akatsuki, or after, the Kyuubi. But if you're going to behave like a kid, then I'm going to do what I have to do. Soon, you'll face enemies much worse than Orochimaru and you need to be ready for them. The first thing you had to do is forget what Sasuke. What happened was destined to happen. Dismiss him from your mind and move on. As a shinobi, you need to have more than just strength. You need the judgment to make the right decision. You need to get smarter. The longer you remain a fool, the harder it will be for you to live in this world. After a moment, fine then, said Naruto. Jiraiya turns toward him. If being smarter says what you mean it is, then I'll remain a fool my entire life. Jiraiya's eyes widen. I'll go after him. And I'll do it on my own if I have to. I'll create my own powerful technique. And when the Akatsuki comes, I'll smack them down. Time skip to Naruto Shippuden. Infiltrating Orochimaru's hideout to rescue Sasuke after Sasori told them of their meeting place at the bridge. After Orochimaru and Kabuto pulled out with Sai in tow, Yamato, Sakura, and Naruto followed in suit. They soon found one of Orochimaru's hideouts and began an infiltration op. They found Sai and questioned him on what his mission was. After learning what Danzo was planning, they then took Sai captive and led him outside to tie him up. Alright, we're right back at square one. The mission is to save Sasuke. Naruto stated. I wouldn't bother if I were you. Sai said. After earning confusing, interested looks from the trio, he continued. You see, I met Sasuke. Wherever Sasuke goes, Orochimaru is always with him. That is to say, if you want to rescue your friend, you have to get through Orochimaru. He paused to let that sink in. If you pursue him, he'll tear you to bits and make you one of his test subjects. And besides what? Naruto asked. It won't matter. Sasuke told me he doesn't care about you. According to Sakura, you look up to him like he's your brother or something. So why? Sai asked. Why save someone that doesn't respect you? Why stand up for the likes of Orochimaru? Why risk your life to save someone who doesn't want to be saved? Why do it when no one is ordering you to? So why? After a moment, Naruto smiled. It's funny. There was a time I really hated Sasuke's guts. Neither of us had a family, but that didn't bring us any closer. I was at the bottom of the class and Sasuke was at the top. But when I got back, I had to admit it was always fun. I mean, after all, Sasuke was the person who accepted me more than anybody else. Sasuke is my best friend. It took a while, but now we have a special bond. After the explosion caused by Sasuke when Sai tried to capture him. Rushing toward the scene, Sakura was the first to make it to Sai. Seconds later, Naruto arrived to find Sakura starting at Sasuke's Sasuke. Naruto said in disbelief. Memories of their fight ran through his head. So why? If everything you said was true, then why? Why didn't you kill me that day? Weren't you going to break that bond? Sasuke. The reason is simple. He closed his eyes. It's not that I couldn't break it, Naruto. Itachi's words on how to obtain the second level of the Sharingan rang through his head. I just couldn't stand the idea of obtaining the power by following his footsteps. He then opens his eyes to look at them. I spared your life on a whim, nothing more. He then used his new speed to cross the distance and appear right beside Naruto. You know, come to think of it, wasn't it always your dream to become the Hokage someday? All of your time spent searching for me would have been better spent in training. Wouldn't you agree, Naruto? He then leans closer and begins drawing his sword. But you know, now my whim is telling me. To finish what I've started. How could I ever be Hokage? If I can't even save one friend? Isn't that right, Sasuke? In the Three Tails appearance arc. What a joke. Dancing with a bunch of toads is embarrassing. Connecting heart and soul is crazy, especially with a toad. Naruto said out loud. Can you really do that? A voice asked from behind, scaring Naruto. What does that mean, to connect heart and soul? Asked the boy. Well, it's when you can feel what someone else is feeling and they feel what you feel. Naruto tried to explain. Can anyone connect like that? Well, yeah, I suppose. He then rambled on about how it will work given time. And then even Sasuke. Because whenever someone is thinking about you, that place is your home. He paused. Sorry, you probably don't know what I'm talking about, do you? Sorry, I was just rambling. Then if someone somewhere is thinking about me, that's where I belong. Yeah, wherever that place is home. I learned something today. The mysterious person then disappeared while Naruto was soaking up the praise. Much later on, after failing to capture the Sanbi, the Konoha team begins the journey home. Before they enters the village, Sakura wondered why Naruto wasn't concerned about Yukimaru, the boy Naruto met before. He's okay. Beside, where he's gone, we would have had a hard time finding him anyways. What are you saying? Asked Sakura. I think what the pervy sage said told me is true. He reached into his pockets. He said that wherever someone is thinking about you, that place is your home. He then pulls out a crystallized flower. And if you keep thinking about that person, sooner or later, your thoughts is going to reach him. Is that? So I say we keep sending our thoughts out there. So that someday, Sasuke will have a home to return to. After Danzo was killed during the 5-Cage Summit. After learning that Sasuke had joined the Akatsuki and was declared a missing nin, Naruto, Kakashi, and Yamato went to find the Raikage and plead for him to not make Sasuke a wanted man. After failing to persuade the Raikage otherwise, the trio check in at a hotel to stay at. During that time, Lee, Sai, Kiba, and Akamaru showed up with Sakura to tell Naruto to give up on Sasuke. Naruto stubbornly refused. Later, Gaara showed up to tell Naruto the news of the summit. Sasuke attacked the 5-Cage, therefore it sealed his fate as a missing nin and one to be hunted by all. Gaara then left Naruto with some parting words. Overwhelmed by the almost of information he received, Naruto began to hyperventilate and then pass out. He later woke up after having dreams of all the memories he had with Sasuke and what he said. He then sneaks out after Yamato forbid him from going after Sasuke. Naruto arrived just in time to prevent Sasuke from killing Sakura. Just before he attacks, Kakashi prevents him from interfering because he wanted to handle the matter on his own. Learning that Kakashi was going to kill Sasuke, Naruto had a clone restrain him while he charged towards Sasuke with his signature technique while Sasuke does the same thing, causing an explosion. White Zetsu caught Sasuke while Kakashi caught Naruto. During the exchange, Naruto found his resolve. Just then, the masked Uchiha arrived. It seems whenever you two are together, you just can't help yourself now, can you? He asked rhetorically. Madara Uchiha, stated Kakashi. I'll arrange the proper time for you two to meet and fight. But for now, we'll retreat. And in the meantime, I'll capture the Jinchuriki, said White Zetsu as more of his clones appeared. No, capturing Naruto too tough for a non-combatant like you. We'll let Sasuke capture him when the time comes, the masked man stated, which White Zetsu complied. Just before they can leave, Naruto walked toward the trio. Despite warnings from his teammates, he wanted to say something to Sasuke before they left. Sasuke was interested in it as well. Sasuke, do you remember? Do you remember what you said to me long ago at the Valley of the End? Asked Naruto. The thing about high-level shinobi? Reading each other's thoughts by exchanging fists and not words? Trading blows just now. I learned a lot about you and what you're thinking. So Sasuke, can you tell what I'm thinking? Can you read my mind? And can you understand that if you and I fight each other, we'll both die? If you attack Konoha, I will have no choice. I will fight you, don't doubt it. Until that day, save your hatred. And then, you can throw them all at me. I'm the only one that can handle all that hate. Do you understand? I'm the only one who can fulfill that duty. Sasuke gritted his teeth at Naruto's words. I'll bear the burden of all your hatred. And I'll die with you. After a moment, what is it with you, huh? Sasuke growled. Just what the hell do you want from me? Why are you so fixated on me? Sasuke demanded. Naruto's expression lightened and a small smile appeared. Because you're my friend. Silence engulfed the two groups and even Sasuke was a little shocked. I haven't given up on you yet. I will take you back to the village. I haven't changed my mind. He then raked one of his hands through his hair. And if the worst does happen and we both end up dying, you won't be an Uchiha and I won't be a Jinchuriki anymore. We'll be free of our burdens. And we'll understand each other in the afterlife. I'm not going to change. And I don't want to understand you. I won't die. You're the one that's going to die. Then we'll die together. Sasuke. During the 4th grade shinobi after Sasuke escaped with his new eyes. After obtaining the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Sasuke decided to test it. Leaving the hideout, he wanders around and realized how empty the places he passed were. Soon, clones of white Zetsu appeared and attacked him. Sasuke dispatched them easily and learned about the war. Something in the forest caught his attention, leading him to investigate. He saw his dead brother somehow alive. He then attacks Itachi, which confirmed his suspicions. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead. Sasuke demanded. This is Kabuto's work. I'm a reanimation now, answered Itachi. I can't stop now. There's something I have to do. I don't care. Sasuke shouted. You're here now and I have questions for you. Ask me later. Thought maybe that won't happen. You said it before, to come find you when I had the same eyes as you. These are your eyes. So why are you running? Itachi avoided the question and continued on his way, making Sasuke follow him and question him. Sasuke told his brother how he was going to destroy Konoha and how it was his brothers that made him the way he is. And how the so-called Madara Uchiha told him everything that happened that night. He asked Itachi why he was spared. You were a child. And also, I wanted to be killed by another Uchiha, Itachi said. I took advantage of your hatred and that's why I failed. I turned you into a criminal. Before I died, I tried to lead you down that one path without any forks or turns. I changed the signposts on that path with lies in my eyes. So I was supposed to walk happily on that one path, ignorant of everything? I don't care for such a path, Sasuke stated. Itachi agreed. He then chuckled. What's so funny? I'm just realizing those signposts were not your only guides, said Itachi. An image of Naruto appeared in their heads. During 4th grade shinobi war after the divine tree appeared. Even though incomplete, Obito wanted the preparation for the infinite Tsukuyomi to begin as soon as possible. He ordered the Jubi to transform into its tree form to initiate the process. Once the tree appeared, it began attacking the allied shinobi force and absorbing the chakra it came in contact with. Naruto and his friends narrowly escaped, but the others weren't so lucky. Shikamaru was one of the few unlucky ones. Obito tried to break Naruto's conviction by telling him it's meaningless and how he was unable to protect everyone. He then tries to get others to give up. Naruto glared at him with teary eyes at what he was doing. After Hashirama explained everything to the allied shinobi force, morale dropped once more. Most had lost the will to fight. The thought of living in a place where dreams can come true was too tempting for them. Even when the former Hokages tried to instill confidence into them, it barely raised the morale. Many had given up and didn't bother moving when a giant root was hovering overhead. They all lost hope. Many believed they shouldn't have gotten involved. That's right, just stay like that, Obito told them. I'll take you to a world where there is no regrets. Naruto was still on the ground but was glaring at him and shaking with anger and with tears flowing down his cheeks. He was soon shook off of his stupor by Sasuke, who sliced through one of the giant roots. Naruto, are you done? Sasuke asked. Because I'm not. With the stunt Sasuke pulled, Naruto called on Kurama's power once more while still on his knees and entered Kurama mode. He began projecting his feelings and thoughts into Ino's jutsu, allowing everyone to feel and see what's inside his mind. A memory of Naruto wanting to call out to Sasuke while he was walking away as a child appeared. Back then, I knew I should have called out to him. I thought about it over and over afterward. A memory of Naruto on a swing set watching everybody else with their parents outside the academy. That's why. The memory of Naruto finally catching up to Sasuke when he tried to leave the village. The death of the Sandaime Hokage and his son, Asuma Sarutobi, and the funeral and grieving that took place. His time spent with Jiraiya and the place he was buried along with two of his students. The death of Itachi and Nagato. Of Granny Chiyo. Of Neji. I don't want to regret anything. I never want to think, I should have, of his mom and dad. And, I just can't make everything we've done, up to this point, meaningless. Naruto leaps forward and stood beside Sasuke while in his tailed beast mode. Sasuke, I'm coming too. Sasuke smirked. Sasuke and Naruto meeting Hagoromo after nearly dying. With Naruto near the blink of death, Sasuke and Naruto meet the sage but in different planes of reality. He explains to them his mother, Kaguya, the battle against the divine tree, and how his son, Indra and Asura started a war that lasted for centuries because of who was chosen as his successor. He explains to them his son's traits and how similar Sasuke and Naruto were to Indra and Asura. He then asked the two of them to honestly tell how they want the fight to end. Maybe I really resemble that Asura. The only difference is that I'm just a stupid kid and there are many things I don't really understand. But I know what friends are. Images of his friends flashed through Naruto's head. And I want to protect them. That's all. Is that your answer? The sage asked. Yes, replied Naruto. This is my decision. From now on, Naruto and Sasuke, you'll be the ones to decide what to do. Naruto smiled. Sasuke and I aren't real siblings. But I think we can make peace. We're great friends, you know. With Sasuke. Sasuke, what are you trying to do? What are you looking for at the end of all this? Asked the sage. I want to hear your honest thoughts. I want to destroy and rebuild. Rebuild a new world for us. One that cannot be tainted by darkness. I want a revolution. Sasuke answered honestly. It's the current cages that have made things turn out this way. And that's why I'll become the Hokage and change the village. When you say Hokage, what exactly does it mean to you? Sasuke told the sage about his brother, Itachi, about how he gave everything up just so Konoha can be safe. He had to live in the darkness because of what he did. The people treated him like a criminal, a traitor. He shouldered all these feelings by himself, but even so, chose to protect Konoha from the shadows. It's someone like him that should have been Hokage. He then tells the sage the mistake Itachi made. And how he was alone. How he can shoulder all the hate himself. How he planned on unifying the village by making himself the target of everyone's hatred. The Hokage that I speak of is a person that could light the darkness that plagues all 5 villages. One that could go through that and survive. Sasuke explained. So, that's your answer? Asked the sage. Yeah, this is my decision. From now on, Naruto and Sasuke, you'll be the ones to decide what to do. Just when I was beginning to think that I was all alone after Itachi died. But I had to kill Naruto, no matter what it takes. Sasuke said. My Hokage needs to be able to cut all relations to be complete. Why Naruto? That guy is the closest thing to a best friend I've ever had. At the Valley of the End where they have their final battle. And canon scenes are done. Story starts here. After defeating Kaguya, Hagoromo's mother, and returning to their own dimension, Sasuke told everyone what his true goal was. Suffice to say, they didn't handle it so well. Especially not Naruto when Sasuke caught the Biju in a genjutsu and cast Chibaku Tensai to trap them all. Deciding to finally settle matters once and for all, Sasuke led Naruto to the place they fought when Sasuke first left the village. Once they arrived, Naruto tried to persuade Sasuke to stop going down that path only for Sasuke to reject him and then share what his meaning of a Hokage is. Their point of views differ and soon, they clashed. Sasuke had to kill Naruto in order for his revolution and ideal Hokage to come true while Naruto had to stop Sasuke to save him from what he's doing and also the Biju. Sasuke held nothing back and came at Naruto with the intent to kill. Naruto was trying to stop Sasuke so he held a great deal back. Sasuke then began to get serious and drew on the power of all 9 Biju, allowing him to reach close to the level of the Rikudo Sennin. The Yin Kurama inside of Naruto began sending more chakra to him and not a moment too soon as Sasuke's enhanced version of the completed Susanoo appeared. Deciding he has no choice but to go all out, Naruto combines his 6 paths Sage Mode Chakra with Tailed Beast Mode Chakra replica of Kurama to increase both size and power to rival Sasuke's new complete Susanoo. He then performed the Shadow Clone technique and made 2 more replica and then combined them into one. Deciding to end it, Sasuke began charging his most powerful attack, Indra's Arrow, while Naruto began preparing to attack. A Senjutsu enhanced giant wind release. Rasen Shuriken and a giant tailed beast ball Rasen Shuriken. The techniques soon clashed, creating a giant explosion and knocking both Naruto and Sasuke out. With little chakra left, they soon begin a match of taijutsu with no clear winner. Both managed to heavily injure the other to the point of exhaustion. Like their previous battle, they begin charging their signature technique, Chidori and Rasengan, and charged at each other. Both attacks were cancelled out and they resumed their taijutsu match. Yin Kurama was about to send Naruto more chakra when Sasuke used his newfound powers to absorb it. Naruto kneeled over and was on all fours as Sasuke stood up. "This is one of the Rinnegan's powers," Sasuke stated. "It's me, the one who has the eyes of the Uchiha clan that is destined to win," Sasuke stated matter-of-factly. He then began charging a Chidori. "With this, I can finally be alone." The sounds of bird chirping grew louder. "See you, my only." He pulls his left arm back. "Friend," and lunged his left arm forward into Naruto's back and through his chest. "Gya!" Naruto screamed. He jerked his body backward as the lightning entered his body. Sasuke then pulls his arm out and Naruto soon collapsed and laid there, bleeding and near the brink of death. Mustering whatever strength he could, Naruto turned so that he can see Sasuke's face. It was then that Naruto noticed something. Behind that impassive look, there was genuine sadness in Sasuke's eyes. Naruto's vision soon began to fade and darkness was surrounding him. His body began feeling colder and colder. Before his eyes closed, he heard Sasuke saying something to him. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." And his vision went black. Naruto lay on the ground, lifelessly, as the Biju gather around him and Hagoromo hovering right in front of him. After centuries of war, it seems Indra, or rather his incarnation, has finally won. He had hoped that somehow, both Asura and Indra would end their fighting and make peace with each other. As naive as it sounded, he couldn't help it due to his parental side. Sadly, that wish was crushed the moment Sasuke struck his final blow on Naruto. "So, Naruto-san is really dead," started Matabi, breaking the silence. "To be strong and yet so young. There won't be another like him for ages," said Chome. "He was the most decent human I've ever met," Son Goku stated. "It's a shame. I was looking forward to knowing him," Isobu said quietly. "Damn it," shouted Yon Kurama as he punched the ground. "How could this have happened?" He vented out his frustration again. It wasn't supposed to end like this. Tears were falling off of his face. For the first time since the sage left, Kurama was crying. Hagoromo just gazed at Naruto with an impassive look. The cycle has finally ended. And it seemed Indra was the winner. Snapping his head toward the sage, young Kurama glared at him with all the strength he could muster. "How could you say that so casually? They were your sons. Are you going to let him die like this? What kind of parents are you?" Kurama roared. To say the others were shocked would be an understatement. Even Yin Kurama couldn't believe how attached his young half grew to the boy and he was to be the darker side. To be able to mole his way into his darker half and actually get him to cry was, well, extraordinary to say the least. The sage, however, just slowly turns toward young Kurama and gave him a stern look. To his credit, Kurama didn't flinch. "Do not question my morals and values, Kurama. Trust me when I say it gives me no pleasures to see my children fight and kill each other for centuries." He then adverted his gaze back to Naruto's form. "I entrusted them with my power and what they do from then on was none of my concerns." He then closed his eyes. "As much as it pains me to say, there's nothing we can do." They all understood what the sage was saying, but that doesn't mean they have to like it. Young Kurama gave him the angriest glare while tears were still flowing down his face before he turns away and continued crying. Yin Kurama tried his best to calm his other self down but was finding it difficult. Without being told, each and every one of them lowered their heads and sent their prayers to Naruto. After a moment of silence, "All right. I can't take this anymore," yelled Shukaku. "Isn't there something we can do?" he asked. Rikudo Sennin shook his head. "What done is done. We can't interfere with the natural order." "Surely there must be a way," pleaded Kakuo. Hagoromo shook his head once more. "As I've said, it's none of." "Damn it, old man," roared young Kurama. "Are you really going to let this happen?" He didn't answer. "For years you've watched your children fight and kill each other only for them to be incarnated and killed again. You've turned a blind eye several times and you're still doing it." He points at Naruto. "Are you going to let him die just so the cycle can continue?" You can change it. We all know you have the power to do so. Stop watching you children fight all the time and do something about it." As Kurama was finished with his rant, he was huffing and panting from all of the exhaustion. The sage didn't say anything but instead just focused his attention on Naruto. He then closes his eyes as if considering his options. "Do you all really care about him?" he asked. "Of course," said Gyuki with a nod. "He's better than most and I would hate to see him go," Seiken stated. Similar responses could be heard among the Biju. Nobody needed to ask Kurama's opinion since they already knew his answer. A tense moment of silence passed before the sage finally opened his eyes. "There is a way to bring him back and change this future." The Biju all looked at him hopefully. "But it will involve restarting everything before this crisis." Son Goku observed him with a calculating gaze. "You mean time travel, don't you, Gigi?" Hagoromo nodded. "But first," he raises his staff. "We need Naruto here before I go into details." He begins channeling his power into his staff, causing it to glow brightly. A beam of white light then shot out from the staff and covers Naruto. The light began to increase in intensity, causing the Biju to avert their gazes and cover their eyes. As the light began to dwindle and then diminishes completely, everyone soon turns back to see if it had worked. At first, nothing happened. But then, Naruto began stirring and soon his eyes slowly flickered open. Slowly sitting up, where am I? Everyone let out a breath they didn't realize they were holding. "Kit!" yelled the two Kuramas. Everybody else greeted him of course, but Kurama was the loudest. Turning toward the familiar voice, "Huh? Kurama? What are you doing here?" Naruto asked. "And why are you crying?" His question caused young Kurama to stiffen, Yin Kurama to avoid his gaze, and the others to hold in their snickers. "Do you not remember what happened?" asked Son Goku, after all the commotion died down. Naruto sat crossed-legged and crossed his arms. "Well, I remember fighting Madara and then Kagaya showed up. I remember defeating her and then talking to my dad afterward." He then frowned. "And then Sasuke said he was going to kill the 5 cages and start a revolution where he'll then unite everyone and shoulder all the hatred by himself. We fought and it was pretty even until he absorbed my chakra. And then, his entire posture slacked." Everyone nodded. They knew what had happened. "That boy." Gyuki shook his head. "He went too far in darkness to come back now." The others nodded in agreement. "To think he believes he can shoulder all the hate in the world by himself." Matabi shook her head at his foolishness. Naruto sighed, raked his hand through his hair. "I tried, but it wasn't enough." Sasuke won. He then turns to face the sage. "I'm sorry, Gigi. I couldn't end the sibling rivalry and I couldn't save Sasuke." He lowered his head, unable to meet his eyes. "I failed." The Biju watched him silently, knowing it wasn't their place to talk. Hagoromo observed him for a few minutes in silence. Finally, "Is this it? Are you just going to give up and let Sasuke venture deeper into the darkness?" Naruto slowly shook his head. "If there was a wind to save him I would. But there isn't. At the Valley of the End, I fought beyond my limits and that still wasn't enough. He won. He killed me there. But if there was a way, would you take it?" the sage asked cautiously. Naruto paused to consider his words. Sasuke's words rang through his head. "See you, my only friend. For what it's worth, I'm sorry." He lifts his head halfway up. If there was a way to save Sasuke and bring him out of the darkness, out of that isolation and solitary life. He then lifted his head more and looked straight into the Hagoromo's eyes. "Then yes, Gigi, I will take it." The sage stared into Naruto's eyes. He could see the determination Naruto had as well as the conviction. "Still, but why? Why would you want to rescue someone who killed you? Who disregarded you for a dream however noble? Who wished to kill those precious to you? Why?" the sage asked. Naruto didn't answer immediately and instead looked up. He noticed it was the same place he first met all the Biju and learned their names. "It's because Sasuke had experienced the same solitude that I have," Naruto answered, without looking at the sage. He knows the pain of loneliness, the pain of losing people precious to him, and the pain that was brought upon by this shinobi system. He then lowers his head to meet the sage's gaze. "But most of all, Sasuke is my friend." Their eyes widened. "And I'll be damned if I let him walk in the darkness alone." Nobody said anything, until young Kurama scoffed and shook his head. "Once a fool always a fool." This caused Naruto to pout and everyone to chuckle. "Very well Naruto," started Hagoromo. Seeing Naruto's confused expression, there is a way for you to save Sasuke. Holding out his hand to stop Naruto from interrupting, he then continues. What I have in mind is something called time travel. Seeing how he has Naruto's attention, he then lowers his hands and continued his explanation. I can send you back in time 4 years from now when you were just beginning your shinobi career. With the limited amount of chakra that I have, as well as yours and the Biju due to Sasuke's actions, I'm afraid that's as far as I can send you back. Naruto smiled. That's fine, Gigi. If there's a chance to save Sasuke, I'll gladly take it. He pumped his fist in the air. Hagoromo smiled as well as the Biju, but they quickly turned their attention back to him, sensing but soon. But Naruto's smile faltered and he lowered his arm. There will be some differences. For starters, Kurama will be extracted from you. No, no, shouted both Naruto and the Kuramas. There has to be another way. I refused to be separated from my pal, Kurama. And I refused to be separated from the kid. Young Kurama stated with Yin Kurama nodding in agreement. It was then all three noticed the sage's amused look. I said Kurama will be extracted from you, Naruto. He said calmly. I never said you'll be separated. Huh? The other Biju were confused as well. Hagoromo chuckled. This task is too great of an importance for it to be handled by one person. I was thinking of also sending everyone's spiritual being with you so that they'll be able to guide you on your journey. That is, if they agreed to it. He looked at each of the Biju, expecting their answers. Do you have to ask? That sounds like a blast, wahaha. Shukaku cackled loudly, causing everyone to sweat drop. Somewhere in heaven, Deidara sneezed. Shaking her head at Shukaku's antics, it'll be an honor for me to accompany Naruto-san on his journey. Matabi said. Anyo. I would also like to join, answered Isobu. Son Goku observed Naruto for a moment before nodding. He's unlike any other humans I've ever met. I'd be glad to help Naruto-san out. I would also like to accompany Naruto-san on his journey to save the future, spoke Kakuo. I'll gladly join Naruto-san and help, exclaimed Seiken. When can we start? Of course I'm coming. There's no way I'm missing all of the fun. In fact, I'm feeling lucky, exclaimed Chome. Gyuki sighed. If Naruto is anything like B, which he kind of is, then he'll need someone to keep him focused. Ignoring Naruto's shouts, you can count me in, Gigi. Everyone then turned their attention toward Kurama, especially the young half. Knowing what they're expecting, he sighed. Well, since the kid is always a magnet for trouble, has a tendency to mess things up, I can hear you, and loves to blow things, I don't do that much. Someone needs to make sure he comes out of that alive. Young Kurama gave Naruto a toothy grin while Naruto pout. He then turns to face the sage. Besides, Naruto perked up. As Naruto stated, we're partners. He turns back toward Naruto and nodded at him. I'm not leaving him behind. Naruto chuckled and then gave Kurama a warm smile. Same here, Kurama. Same here. He held out his fist and the two fists bumped each other. Hagoromo watched the scene with a happy smile. It seems I was right to choose him to be one of my successors. The prophecy about the boy that would one day befriend all the Biju and play with them. There was no doubts in the sage's mind that the boy was Naruto. Remembering something important, Naruto returned his attention to Hagoromo. So what are the other differences? The sage sighed. In order to avoid the time paradox, your counterpart when you've time-traveled back will be of a different gender and would have lived a slightly different life than you. Slowly, so are you saying that my counterpart? Hagoromo nodded. Yes, the version of you in that world will be female. How her life will be different I cannot say. All I know is that her life won't be an exact replica of yours. It sounds more like dimension traveling if you ask me. Naruto mumbled. But, I can live with that. I think. It'll be kind of weird though, said Naruto honestly. Any other differences I should know about? Just one more thing. Due to the amount of chakra I have to use in order to send you back as well as no longer having Kurama to have replenish your chakra, there will be changes in your chakra system. Nobody said anything for a while. What kind of changes? Naruto asked, almost not wanting to know. As you know, I gave you 3 of my powers. My young power, my chakra, and the 6-path sage mode. Naruto nodded. With the time travel jutsu, or from your point, dimension travel jutsu, Naruto grinned sheepishly. It will most likely be that your chakra and mine will merge. Naruto and everyone's eyes widened at this. If that were to occur, you won't have access to chakra for quite some time, meaning ninjutsu, genjutsu, senjutsu, Mayang power and Six Paths Sage mode as well as the chakra requiring abilities you've obtained from everyone or any other forms of chakra will be off limits until the merge is complete or have reached a certain point. Again, silence fell upon the group. Intel, great. Give him something that'll boost his ego. Young Kurama grumbled, causing the other Biju to exchange amused looks. So basically, Naruto started, ignoring Kurama. I'll have to rely on my taijutsu until I've reached a safe point in the merger? Hagoromo nodded. Yes. By my calculations, since you have large chakra reserves due to you hosting Kurama as well as receiving my powers, it'll only take a couple of months before you can use any forms of chakra, but even then you'll have a set time to use it. How long I cannot say. Naruto understood and nodded. The Biju understood this as well. Considering Naruto mostly rely on his ninjutsu arsenal to win, and now that it's being off limits for a couple of months, it means they'll have their work cut out for them. Knowing the kind of troubles Naruto will get into, they all hope they'll survive this adventure. I now worry for our safety. Young Kurama said quietly, but the others heard him save for Naruto. Son Goku turned toward him. Is it really that bad, Kurama? You don't know the half of it. The kid is a magnet for trouble. Naruto stood up and looked around him. Soon, he was going to embark on a trip to save Sasuke and prevent a future like this from happening. Are you guys ready for this? He asked all the Biju. They all nodded, though some were looking at Kurama wondering if this was such a good idea after all. Naruto nodded. Alright then. He turns to face the sage. Whenever you're ready, Gigi. Hagoromo smiled. There's just one last thing I want to say, Naruto. What is it? He closed his eyes. When I said I would entrust the future to both you and Sasuke, I had thought I'd meant it. He opens his eyes to look at Naruto. When Sasuke killed you, I had resigned to that. I wasn't going to interfere because it wasn't any of my concerns anymore. He sighed, and then a smile appeared. But it's because everyone didn't want you to go and persuaded me that I decided to bring you back to life and give you another chance. I still had to test you on your conviction though, but at the end, I'm glad of what I did. Naruto was shocked at his words before a smile appeared on his face. Now go. Change the shinobi world for the better. I know you can do it. He begins performing the hand signs for the technique. And please, look after each other. The smile never left his face. Naruto chuckled while the Biju smiled. You know we will, Gigi. Just leave everything to us. The others nodded in agreement. Light began emitting from the sage's hands and soon, it blinded everyone. Konohagakure, 4 years ago. The Sandaime just couldn't help but feel sad as he watches the event take place in his crystal ball. Moments ago, Natsumi broke into Hokage Tower and stole the scroll of ceilings. The Sandaime couldn't help but feel a sense of pride at how far his granddaughter figure had come. Sadly, the other shinobi didn't share the same feelings. What made matters worse is that Mizuki was the one who tricked Natsumi into stealing the scroll and was planning on putting the blame on her. It was a good thing that Iruka showed up when he did and the truth was revealed, otherwise the villagers would have ordered her execution. Of course, other truths were revealed as well. Natsumi now know the reason why the villagers treated her so coldly and what was sealed inside of her. It was only thanks to Iruka's intervention that Natsumi escaped death and found the courage to not go into darkness and fought back. Iruka later deemed her worthy of the Konoha Hite aid and gave her his Hite aid as well as promise of a ramen treat later. Of course, they first had to return the scroll. The walk back to the Hokage Tower was quiet to say the least. After all, how were you supposed to react when you've just found out a secret everyone kept from you since you were born and the reason why everyone treated you so coldly? Natsumi was staring off in the distance, lost in her own thoughts while Iruka was limping and carrying the scroll with him while occasionally stealing glances toward the redhead out of the corners of his eyes. The whole thing was damn awkward in Iruka's opinion. Natsumi, Iruka started. Natsumi didn't say anything at first. But after a while, what is it, Iruka-sensei? She asked quietly. How are you feeling? I've been better, she answered honestly and said no more. Iruka sighed. He can clearly see how hard Natsumi was trying to hold back her feelings. You're not the Kyuubi, Natsumi. Iruka said, attempting to comfort her. You're just its jailer. It's sealed inside of you. You're two different beings. Then why am I treated so coldly? Natsumi asked quietly, again. She didn't bother looking toward Iruka when she asked him. People always fear what they don't understand. It's just the way humans act. Iruka sighed sadly. They continued walking until they reached the Hokage Tower. We're here, Iruka said. He then spare a glance at Natsumi. It's best if we don't keep the Hokage waiting. He then knocked on the door. Come in, said the Sandame. The handle turned and the door opened. Iruka and Natsumi walked in and Iruka closed the door behind them before walking toward the Sandame's desk. The Sandame looked at Iruka and saw that despite his injuries, it was nothing life-threatening. He then turned his gaze toward Natsumi and saw something in her eyes that made his heart sink. It was sadness with a slight touch of betrayal. It made his heart ache. Clearing his throat, thank you for ensuring the well-being of the scroll as well as routing out a traitor of Konoha. Iruka flinched, knowing Mizuki is indeed a traitor but he was still his friend. As such, you will be rewarded accordingly. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Iruka bowed. He then walked up to set the scroll on his desk before stepping back. Natsumi remained quiet the entire time. If I may, what will happen to Mizuki? The Hokage blew a puff of smoke from his pipe. By standard procedures, he will be taken to the T&I department where he will be held for questioning until his trial. The Anbu should be bringing him there just about now, the Sandame explained. I see, Iruka said quietly. He glanced at Natsumi before looking at the Sandame. If I may, Hokage-sama, I would like to go ahead and leave to get these wounds treated. He knew the Sandame would like to talk to Natsumi in private. Seeing his nod, Iruka then bowed and said his goodbyes before exiting and closing the door behind him. Now then, why don't you tell me what's wrong, Natsumi-chan? The Sandame started. Natsumi didn't answer immediately. Why didn't you tell me I had the Kyuubi inside me? She then lifts her head to look at him. Don't I deserve the right to know? Her voice was quiet the whole time. The Sandame sighed. I was planning on tell you later when you were old enough, but I guess now is as good a time as any. He placed both elbows on the desk and clasped his hands in front of him. When the Kitsune attacked the village, many shinobi and civilians alike died. Many homes were destroyed and people lost many loved ones. The survivors of the attack still remembers the horrors of the devastation it caused and the foul chakra it emitted. A Biju cannot be killed, therefore the only way to defeat them is by sealing them inside a person. The fourth Hokage knew that there was no way an adult with a fully developed chakra system can handle the stress of Biju chakra. The only way to successfully seal a Biju was inside a newborn baby whose chakra system was undeveloped. The Hokage took breath. He knew that Jinchuriki, those who harbor a Biju inside of them, are destined to live a life full of hardships for keeping the beast at bay. His final wish was for you to be seen as a hero. Sadly, people always fear what they don't understand. That's what Iruka-sensei said, Natsumi recalled. So in order to ensure you have a normal childhood, the Sandame continued, snapping Natsumi out of her thoughts. I issued a decree preventing people from speaking of the beast sealed inside of you. What I didn't count on was how deep the seeds of hate was. He shook his head. Parents told their children to stay away from you, Natsumi-chan, even when they don't fully comprehend the situation. They believed that one day, the seal will break and the Kyuubi will be free once more. Others believed you are the Kyuubi reincarnated. He let out a tiring sigh. I tried my best to make sure you live a happy life. But there's so much I can do. Natsumi was quiet as she took in his words. So, she started, does this mean everyone thinks I'm the Kyuubi? The Sandame shook his head. Not everyone, Natsumi-chan. There are people here in Konoha that knows you are not the beast, only his jailer. Those who can't tell the difference between a kunai and a sealed kunai are just too prejudiced of their hate to realize they're two different things. Once again, Natsumi took his words in. But why me? Why did the Yondaime choose me? The Sandame took a puff from his pipe. He believes you would one day tame the Kyuubi and one day use his power for good. He believed in you. And so do I. He smiled. Natsumi managed a smile as well. Wiping away some of the tears that threatened to leak, she then walks up to the Hokage to give him a hug. Thanks Gigi, she whispered. You're welcome, Natsumi-chan. He gently rubbed her back to calm her down. Soon, she released him to look at him. Did you know who my parents were, Gigi? The Sandame didn't reply immediately but instead focused his attention on her eyes. He could tell she really wanted to know and denying her would do more harm than good. Sighing, yes, Natsumi-chan, I did know them. In fact, I'd say we were pretty close. Her face brightened considerably. Can you tell me about them? Please? Natsumi begged. She was immediately deflated when he shook his head. Why won't you tell me? Being an orphan since birth, one of the things she wanted to know the most was who her parents were. I made a promise to them to tell you when you're ready, and I'm a man of my words. Seeing her pleading face, which reminded him so much of Kushina, he sighed. Sorry Natsumi-chan, but no. Until you're strong enough to protect yourself and know the true meaning of what it means to be strong, I can't tell you. He looked at her straight in the eyes. Those are my conditions, and it's also for your safety. Natsumi pouted but reluctantly nodded. I understand. Guess I better train, huh? She joked weakly. The Hokage nodded and smiled. Of course. I'll reveal everything to you when you're ready. Think of it as motivation. Natsumi nodded in acceptance. Now, he stood up with Natsumi mimicking his actions. It's getting late and we have a big day tomorrow. Natsumi's eyes widened. The genin team selection. The Sandame nodded. That's right. You've had a rough day. Get some rest Natsumi-chan, and I'll see you soon. Okay? Okay Gigi. She gave him a quick goodbye hug before leaving and heading home. After she left, Sarutobi sighed. He turned his head right to look at the picture frames of all the Hokages of Konoha, especially the Yondaime. Do you think I did the right thing, Minato? He wondered out loud. As if the picture was answering, Sarutobi and the hidden Anbu suddenly sensed something appearing in the room. It was an unfamiliar chakra signature, but it didn't feel hostile. Still, everyone in the room tensed and prepared themselves. A tiny vortex appeared in the center of the room and began to grow in size. Soon, a body appeared from out of the vortex and landed on the floor with a loud thud. Nobody made a move since they didn't know if it was an enemy. But then they noticed the state he was in. Torn clothes, blood covering his body as well as multiple bloody bruises. It looks like the intruder made it to hell and back. And then they noticed how he was bleeding from the hole in his chest. And the Konoha Hite ate on his forehead. Shit, was the collective thoughts of Sarutobi and the Anbu. Appearing and rushing toward the intruder, the medic of the Anbu team quickly began performing medical ninjutsu with the rest of his squad surrounding the unknown in case he proved to be a hostile. Sarutobi walked over and almost had a heart attack when he saw the person's facial features. It's he almost looks like Minato. He then narrows his eyes. But those marks on his face. It's almost the same as Natsumi's. But, he then pictures the Yondaime and his wife with Natsumi and the intruder in it and almost fell backward in shock. Luckily, he wasn't the Hokage for nothing. With that blonde hair and face, put together with Natsumi's red hair and face, they're the spitting image of both Minato and Kushina. He then slowly came in closer. What in the world is going on here? He glanced at the picture of the Yondaime out of the corner of his eyes. Sir, the sound of the Anbu snapped him out of his thoughts. Regaining his composure, report. Hi. The intruder appears to have suffered severe chakra exhaustion as well as multiple bone fractures. The wound to the chest punctured his lungs, cutting of the air supplies. His chakra system is severely damaged from the strain of the battle he was in. I managed to stop the blood flow, but he's in dire need of medical attention. The Anbu then looked at the mysterious person. By all means, he should be dead. Somehow, he's alive, but barely. Sarutobi nodded grimly. I see. Take him to the emergency room and station yourself around the room as well as outside. Nobody gets in except for me, understood? He ordered in a firm tone. Hi. And with that, the Anbu carried Naruto to the hospital as quickly and gently as they could to give him the medical attention he needs. Once the Anbu were gone, he went over to his chair and sat down with a sigh. What in the world is going on here? He asked out loud. I better get Jiraiya here for this. He pulls out a pen and a scroll and began writing. Things were about to get interesting in Konoha. Alright. Settle down everyone, the Hokage ordered. One by one all chatters came to a halt. Now that most of us are here, we can start the meeting. Starting from Team 1, go. The Jonin all nodded. 3 days ago the new Genin teams were announced and Jonin-sensei were assigned to each cells. 3 days ago they all tested the students to see whether or not they had the makings to actually be a Genin, and now they're giving the Hokage their judgment. One by one each Jonin-sensei stepped forward and told the Hokage their team's fate. Since Kakashi is late, as usual, we'll move on to Team 8, said the Sandame, while blowing puffs out of his pipe. Team 8, passed, replied Kurenai Yuhi. Her team was composed of Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame, and Hinata Hyuga. Team 9 is still in circulation, so we'll move on to Team 10, said the Sandame. Team 10, passed, answered Asuma Sarutobi. His team was composed of Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamichi, and Ino Yamanaka. The Sandame nodded. Very well. Now until Kakashi gets here. Poof. A puff of smoke suddenly appeared beside Asuma, and when it disappeared, it was the form of the silver-haired ninja, Kakashi Hitaki. Yo, he greeted, giving everyone his signature eye smile while having his perverted book out. Sorry I'm late. A black cat crossed my path, so I had to go the long way around. Kakashi said, still with his eye smile. Everyone just rolled their eyes at his antics. The Hokage chuckled. You're late, Kakashi. As usual. There was no real malice in his voice, only amusement. Still, Kakashi had the decency to look sheepish. Since you're here, he started. Why don't you give us the report on Team 7? Snapping his book closed, Kakashi straightened his posture and stepped forward with an air of professionalism surrounding him. Everyone rolled their eyes. Team 7, pause for dramatic effect. Passed. He gave the Sandame one of his eye smiles. The other Jonin were shocked. This was the first time Kakashi had ever passed a team. Team 7 would be composed of Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, and Natsumi Uzumaki. The Sandame chuckled and nodded. Very well, he said. Congratulations to all new Jonin sensei. May the will of fire burn brightly in you and your students. Unless anyone have something else they would like to add, you're all dismissed. One by one the Jonin left until it was only the Sandame left and his hidden ambu guards. The room was quiet until, aren't you a little too old to be playing hide and seek, Jiraiya? Asked Sarutobi out loud. Out of the corner of the room, a form suddenly materialized to reveal the white-haired hermit, Jiraiya. Hey, sharp as always. I could never manage to hide from you, sensei, said the toad sage. Sarutobi chuckled. Well, you were always my most clumsy student after all. Jiraiya feigned in hurtfulness. Ouch. That's harsh, sensei. And here I thought we were close. He wiped an imaginary tear. The Sandame shook his head at his antics. Always with the acts. I take it that your journey home was eventful? Jiraiya nodded enthusiastically. Oh yeah, you should have seen the research materials I found on the way back. I'm telling you, my next book will be a bestseller, he boasted. But then he turned serious. Pleasantries aside, I take it you have an important reason for calling me back? At this, the Sandame's demeanor turned serious as well, earning narrowed eyes from Jiraiya. Yes, something happened 4 days ago. And it has troubled me since. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. Something you can't figure out? His sensei was nicknamed the God of Shinobi for his skills and knowledge. For him to be stumped on something was rare and definitely warrant attention. 4 days ago a stranger appeared in Konoha on the brink of death wearing a Konoha Hite 8. Jiraiya tilted his head in confusion. I see how that'll be suspicious, but that hardly concerns me. The Sandame shook his head. It's how he got here and who he looks like that troubles me. He blew a puff from his pipe as he leaned forward with his hand clasped in front of him. The intruder appeared in this very room out of a vortex that appeared out of nowhere and then disappeared into thin air. Now Jiraiya has both eyebrow raised but in surprised. Space-time ninjutsu? It was a difficult branch in the ninja arts, not to mention only a handful can perform them. The Hokage lowered his hat a bit. I'm not quite sure, Jiraiya-kun, but it's possible. Jiraiya nodded. This certainly has his interest. He then remembered something his sensei said a while back. So who did this guy look like that made you call me all the way back? The Sandame sighed and then stood up. It's better, or should I say more believable, if I just show you. He then began walking toward the door. Jiraiya didn't move and raised his eyebrows for a few moments before following his sensei in tow. Jiraiya gasped. It's impossible. His eyes were wide and he unconsciously took a step back. He looks almost like Minato. Laying in the bed covered in bandages from head to toe was a carbon copy of a late friend of theirs. Jiraiya couldn't see it at first, but when the Hokage removed the bandages from his face, he saw the undeniable resemblance. The Sandame slowly nodded in agreement, while reattaching the bandages. He does. But what's interesting is his facial markings. He points toward them. They're exactly like Natsumi's. Jiraiya snapped his head toward Sarutobi. But that's impossible. Those whiskers marks on Natsumi's face were from her birth due to the Kyuubi being inside her mother. The Hokage nodded grimly. I know. Jiraiya turns his gaze toward the intruder and narrows his eyes. Does this mean he somehow has the Kyuubi chakra sealed inside of him? He asked. Sarutobi shook his head. No. I had the Anbu search his entire body and they found no seals of any kind anywhere. I also had the doctors run diagnostic tests on his chakra and they couldn't find any trace of Biju chakra anywhere as well. However, Jiraiya turns to face him. A thorough investigation revealed he has two types of chakra in his body. And they appear to be merging into one. Jiraiya had a surprised expression when he heard that. Two chakra types merging? The Sandaime nodded. But that's impossible without a seal of some sort like Natsumi's seal. I know, the Hokage said grimly. Our mysterious friend is full of surprises. The Toad Sage chuckled bitterly. So I see. He turns to face his sensei. Can you tell if he's friend or foe? The Hokage shook his head. All we found on his affiliation is a Konoha Hite 8. I had the Anbu search through the files for his records but so far they found nothing. He sighed. I have the doctors running blood tests but we won't get the results for a while. He could be one of ours but until we have hard proof, he's an unknown. It's understandable. If he was a spy, it would explain why there's no records of him and why he has the Konoha Hite 8. Jiraiya hemmed. How's his condition? He blew a puff of smoke out before answering. Stable. For now. When he showed up, he had a severe case of chakra exhaustion, several bone fractures, damaged chakra system, punctured lungs, a hole in his chest and was bleeding profoundly. The hermit couldn't help but whistle at the list. Damn, who the hell was he fighting? Better question yet, what was he fighting? Jiraiya asked rhetorically. Has he shown any signs of waking up? Sarutobi shook his head once more. No, I've had Anbu guarding him 24/7 and they reported that he showed no signs of improvements, he answered, to which Jiraiya hemmed. After a moment of silence, I do wish he'll come to soon because he has the answers to many questions. Jiraiya nodded in agreement. Yeah, I'll say. A look-alike of Minato showing up in a vortex heavily wounded and with Natsumi's facial markings she received from the Kyuubi. He shook his head. I can see why you would want me back so soon, sensei. The Sandaime didn't respond. Have you noticed, Jiraiya? Seeing his questioning expression, if you place this stranger beside Natsumi and have a picture of Minato and Kushina nearby. Jiraiya squinted his eyes and tried to imagine it in his head. As the image appeared, Jiraiya's eyes widened and he took a few steps back. Holy shit, he exclaimed in surprise and shock. They look almost like Minato and Kushina. Sarutobi nodded grimly in agreement. Far too much of a coincidence, don't you think, Jiraiya? Why yeah, he replied shakily. The shock was still there. The Hokage then sighed. Well, we won't get answers until he finally wakes up. I take it you'll be in town until then? He asked. Yeah, Jiraiya started, still not taking his eyes off of the stranger. The beeping of the heartbeat monitor filled the room. Finally, after a few moments of silence. I think I can use a few drinks. He then looked at the Sandaime. Care to join me, sensei? The Hokage nodded. I think that'll be best. 2 weeks later. Well done, Team 7. Thank you for returning the Fire Daimyo wife's cat, said the Hokage. Everyone ignored the cat's shrieking as the lady hugged him to death. Now for your next mission, you have several options to choose from. He begins to read the mission list. Among them is babysitting, helping with groceries, picking up potatoes. No, exclaimed Natsumi, while making an X cross with her arms. Can we get a better mission than these? They're so childish. Come on, Gigi. Natsumi pleaded with her puppy dog eyes. She got a point, were the collective thoughts of both Sakura and Sasuke. Kakashi inwardly sighed. I'm going to hear about this later. Ignorant brats. Iruka stood up from his seat. You're just a bunch of fresh genin. You need to start from the bottom and work your way up first, he shouted. He then begins lecturing on how each team is assigned a mission based on their skills, which everyone promptly ignored. Are you even listening to me? Shaking out of her daydreams, huh? Did you say something, Iruka-sensei? Said person grew a tick mark while the Sandaime and other shinobi in the mission room stared at Kakashi, who had the happiest expression he could manage while behind the mask. They grow up so fast. Kakashi inwardly cried anime tears. To think, his sensei's daughter would be following in his footsteps. Somewhere in the Shinigami's stomach, Minato shudders as a chill entered his spine. Back in Konoha, listen Iruka-sensei, Natsumi started. I get what you're saying, but I'm not a little kid anymore. I can take care of myself. And if I fail, well, she turns and look at her teammates and Jonin-sensei on both sides of her. Then I have my comrades to help me. That what being a team means, right? She asked with a smile. The Sandame had an impassive demeanor, though inwardly he was proud, while Iruka sat back down. Kakashi, Sakura, and Sasuke looked at her before smiling and nodding in agreement. Yeah, shouted Sakura. We're Squad 7, we can handle it. Together, she exclaimed. HN was Sasuke's only response, but he was smirking. Kakashi on the other hand was looking at the Sandame as if silently communicating. After a while, he gave an eye smile. I think we can handle a C-ranked mission, Hokage-sama. The Hokage eyed all of them very carefully before nodding. Though if one were to look closely, he had a tiny smile on his lips. Very well. Send in the bridge builder. On cue, the entrance door slid open and with it came the form of a man in his late 50s wobbling while holding an open sake bottle. EHH, he commented surly. I asked for ninjas, and all I get are a bunch of snot-nosed pipsqueaks. Natsumi made a lunge at the bridge builder, but luckily, or unluckily, Kakashi held her back. Pipsqueak? I'll show you how much of a pipsqueak I am when I shove my foot up your… Before she could finish that sentence, Kakashi immediately covers her mouth. This caused Iruka to sigh and the Sandame to rub his temples. As for Sasuke and Sakura, one ignored the insult while the order developed an eye twitch. Ma, calm down Natsumi. Kakashi attempted to calm her. You're not supposed to kill the client. That's not how things work. She really did inherit Kushina's temper, he inwardly mused. Tazuna on the other hand, seemed totally unfazed by the threat and continued taking another drink from his sake. Sighing as he felt the warm booze go down his throat, well, whatever the case, I expect you all to protect me with your lives. Once Natsumi finally calmed down, Kakashi released her and turned to face his team. Since this is a C-ranked bodyguard mission, and we don't know how long we'll be there, pack for the duration of a few weeks. Once you're done, meet me at the gate in 2 hours. Dismiss. And with that, he was gone in a puff of smoke. The others began exiting through the door as they make their way back. Once Team 7 and their client were gone, Iruka sighed. That Natsumi. He shook his head before chuckling. She's full of surprises, don't you agree? He turns to face the Sandame. Hokage-sama? Said person nodded in agreement with a small smile. Yes, she is. She'll become a fine kunoichi of Konoha, he stated with the utmost fate. He then blew a puff of smoke out. His mind was still trying to wrap around the seeming connection between Natsumi and the stranger that has been comatose for nearly 3 weeks. Jiraiya went a while ago to check up on his spy network to see whether or not he can dig up some information on the mysterious guest. Of course, he's staying close to the village so that he can return when the Minato lookalike finally wakes up. 5 minutes after Team 7 left the building, an ANBU that the Sandame recognized as one of Intruder's bodyguards, appeared in front of him in a kneeling position. Report, ordered the Hokage. Hi. The patient has shown signs of consciousness as seen from the stirring. A few minutes after, he woke up. Albeit still weak, he is able to maintain adequate focus. Cat is currently running diagnostic and stabilizing him as we speak. The Hokage nodded. It seems he'll be getting answers soon. Very well. Send notice to Jiraiya and notify them of my arrival. Without being told twice, the Anbu disappeared to complete his assigned task as the Hokage stood up. Turning toward Iruka, I trust you'll be able to handle things in my absence, Iruka-san? Nodding, hi, Hokage-sama. Returning the nod, good. Now if you'd excuse me, I have some important matters to deal with, said the Sandame before he disappeared as well toward the hospital. Inside Naruto's mindscape a few moments earlier. Drip, drip. Naruto's eyes slowly opened and he found himself within a familiar place. Drip. This is. He began to sit up only for waves of pain to shoot throughout his body as he moved. Wincing, he slowly tries again. Looking around, he saw that this was the sewer in which Kurama used to be in. Except, Kurama? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Cupping his hands, Kurama. He yelled. His voice echoed throughout the sewers. He then held his stomach from the pain. Damn, what hit me? He asked to no one in particular. Carefully getting off the ground, he tried his best to stand. More waves of pain shot through his body, but Naruto didn't give up. Finally, he was standing but was still wobbly. He closed his eyes and slowed his breathing to calm himself. Once he was calmed, he tried to recall the event that took place. What happened before? Oh right, the Gigi sent us back in time. But if that's the case, he opened his eyes and looked around him. Then where is everybody? He wondered out loud, his voicing echoing. Wanting to find answers, he dragged himself deeper into his mindscape. As he turned a corner, he saw where his companions were. Laying on the ground and apparently sleeping were all 9 of his companions that agreed to travel back in time with him to guide him on his quest. He smiled a warm smile as he recalled each and every one of them stepping forward and agreeing on coming with him. He then remembered what the sage said about how it was because of them that he was still alive. Shedding a few tears at his friends, he then wiped them and proceeded forward. Limping and wincing with every steps, he soon came to the face of his pal, Kurama. Reaching out, he began to tap Kurama on his cheek. "Hey Kurama," he called out. "Wake up pal." He began tapping a little harder. Soon, Kurama began stirring. Slowly, he flickered his eyes open. The same red silted eyes that befriended Naruto and become one of his closest friend. Kurama groaned. Gigi could have at least warned us about this. Shaking his head to help clear his bearing, he then got up and stretched. Popping a few joints, he instantly felt relieved. Turning his head to face Naruto, "Hey kid," he greeted. "Any ideas where we are? Or how long we were out?" asked the kitsune. Shaking his head, "Sorry Kurama. I just woke up a few moments ago," Naruto answered. "As for this place, I think we're in my mindscape. But much deeper into it." Kurama looked around and saw that it was the same sewer in which he was held in, but it was indeed much deeper inside Naruto. Kurama hemmed. "The Gigi must have put us deep into your psyche so that no one will be able to find us unless you want them to, kid," he speculated. "Makes sense." Naruto agreed. "It'll be hard to explain why I have 9 of you guys inside of me all at once." He chuckled and grinned sheepishly, causing Kurama to roll his eyes. "Well, whatever the case," Kurama started. "I think you should check on the outside world." Kurama shrugged his shoulders. "Who knows in what point in time we are in now?" "Well," Naruto started. "The Gigi did say he'll send us back to as far as 4 years in the past where my shinobi career began." Naruto crossed his arms and winced from the pain he felt. "The female version of me should be 13 now. But the time when my shinobi career begins." Naruto mumbled, widening his eyes. "The night Mizuki tricked you into stealing the scroll." Realization fell upon them. "That was when that Iruka character gave you your Konoha Hite 8, Kurama pointed out. "That was when your career as an official shinobi began," he hypothesized. "Well, shit," was all Naruto could say. He remembered that night very clearly. It was the night someone finally acknowledged him. And the night he learned the truth that was kept secret from him for 13 years. "He really did send us back to square one," Naruto commented with a sigh. Kurama shrugged. "Regardless, it's best if you actually check on the outside world." "We're just speculating after all," he suggested. Naruto thought about it for a moment before nodding. Aside from possible questions that will be hard to answer, he was really looking forward into seeing how this world was different. Not to mention how his female counterpart was doing. "But first, shouldn't we wake the others up?" he asked. Kurama shrugged once more. "Up to you kid. I for one am going back to sleep." With that, he then proceeded to lay down. Yawning, "Wake me up when you're in dire need. Otherwise, beat it." And he closes his eyes. Naruto grew a tick mark. "Damn lazy fox," he grumbled. Huffing, he then closes his eyes and feels himself exiting his own mindscape. Outside his mindscape, the first thing that came into Naruto's mind when he came to was pain. Waves of innumerable pain shooting throughout his body even if he so much as twitch. Slowly, but surely, he opens his eyes to greet the world around him. His vision was blurry at first but then it adjusted. The first thing he noticed were the white ceilings. Second, it was the steady beeping of a heartbeat monitor. And third, it was the oh-so-familiar smell of antiseptics. The hospital, were his first thoughts. Just great. Suddenly, he felt a smoothing sensation coming from his stomach. Looking down, he saw an Anbu performing medical ninjutsu. "Who?" His voice came out hoarsely. "You shouldn't speak," said the masked Anbu in a feminine voice with purple hair. You are still very weak, she told him. You've suffered immense external as well as internal damage. You're very lucky to be alive. Naruto nodded weakly. He wasn't surprised to hear the damage he took. In his defense, he fought for what? A week, against one powerful opponent after another with no breaks in between. He was strong, but even he has his limits. Although, reaching them takes immense efforts. Water, he said hoarsely. His throat felt so dry and his mouth felt like it was full of sand. Complying, the Anbu quickly went to fetch him some water. When she came back, Naruto took giant gulps as if it was the first time he ever had a drink. Letting out a satisfied sigh, "Thank you," he said, albeit still a little raspy. Nodding, "You're welcome," said the female Anbu before she resumes healing him. After a few moments, she stops. "There, I've managed to stabilize as well as ease the pain." She then turns to face him. "You will have a visitor soon. I suggest you save your strength." Seeing Naruto's understanding nod, she quickly disappeared into thin air, no doubt returning to her post. 2 minutes later, the door slid open. Turning his head, Naruto came to see the form of someone he never thought he'd see again walking toward him. It was the same old, wrinkled-faced, kind and gentle, grandfatherly figure of his, the Sandaime. Widening his eyes, "Gigi," he whispered without thinking. Sarutobi stopped mid-step, but he quickly recovered and approached the bed. "I see you're finally awake," said the Sandaime while blowing on his pipe. "Gigi," Naruto whispered again in disbelief. Tears threatened to leak out of his eyes. "Interesting." Letting out a puff of smoke, "I can see that you're familiar with me, but I've never seen you before in my life," said Sarutobi. "What's your name?" he asked. Naruto paused to consider his options. He could very well lie and make something up, but that might cause trouble down the road. Or he could tell the truth and explain everything to the Hokage, and if he's lucky, he'd be put in a mental facility for a few years. "Just tell him the truth, Kit," came the familiar voice of Kurama. "I trust the old geezer to help us out." "I know you do too." "Well, him and the Toad Hermit. Are you sure we should let them know, Kurama?" Naruto inwardly asked. "We don't know what it'll bring down the road," Naruto said worriedly. "It'll be wise to let a few people in on this, Naruto-san." The voice came from not Kurama but Matabi. "It'll make our job much easier if we have outside help." "Yes," agreed Gyuki. "We can't do this by ourselves, Naruto. Too much is at stake here." Naruto couldn't tell, but he can feel the other Biju that haven't spoken nodding in agreement. Seeing how outnumbered he was, he inwardly sighed. "Alright, I just hope he believes me, otherwise our job just got a lot harder." Kurama scoffed. "If worst comes to shove, we can always figure something out. Humans will believe in anything." "Fine." With a sigh, he refocused his attention to the Sandaime, who was watching him with a calculating look, unaware of the conversation that was taking part in Naruto's mind. Taking a breath, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki." Sarutobi hemmed. "Uzumaki, huh?" he muttered under his breath. "Very interesting indeed. Well, Naruto Uzumaki," he started. "When you arrived in Konoha, you were wearing a Konoha Hite 8. But like I've mentioned before, I've never seen you in my life. It's hard to explain." He struggled to find the words, but it wouldn't come out. Finally, with a sigh, "I am a Konoha shinobi, but technically I'm not from here. As in this dimension." And nope. Still doesn't make any sense. How am I supposed to tell him I'm from the future without having it sound so far-fetched? Naruto inwardly asked. The Biju didn't have an answer and remained quiet. "Oh," the Sandaime raised one of his eyebrows. "So you're from a different hidden village then?" Naruto shook his head. "No, I'm from Konoha and was born in Konoha, but not in this Konoha," he tried his best to explain. Blowing out a puff of smoke, "I hope you realize that you're contradicting yourself, and the only thing you've told me that I believed to be the truth was your name," said the Sandaime with a hidden threat. With a sigh, "Why not? It's not like things can get any worse." Looking at Sarutobi straight in the eyes, "Would you believe me if I said I was from the future?" asked Naruto in all seriousness. Sarutobi had an impassive look as he took his words in. Finally, after a few moments of silence, in which Naruto was starting to sweat, "Do you have any proof?" he asked. Naruto was relieved and let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. At least he didn't flat out deny it. Now I can finally make some progress. But first, mind running a mile an hour, Naruto tries to come up with a way to prove his story. "I can't use my chakra. Crap. Well, there goes Sage Mode and the Rasengan." Try telling him some events of the future, Naruto-san, said Son Goku. You think that'll work? He could feel Son Goku shrugging. It's worth a shot. Taking a deep breath, Naruto turns to face the Sandaime and begins telling him the events that will unfold in the future. The mission to Wave, Chunin exams in Orochimaru, the invasion, the Sandaime's death, which he showed no reactions to, Akatsuki, Tsunade Ba-chan. Naruto swore he saw the Sandaime's lip twitch at the mention of her nickname, failing to retrieve Sasuke, 3-year training trip, the death of Jiraiya, the second invasion, the fourth Great Shinobi War, and his second chance. He, of course, left out the parts about all 9 Biju inside of him, and since he didn't know how the Hokage would react to that. Once Naruto was finished, he let out a breath and looked at the clock. His story lasted almost 2 hours. Well, started the Sandaime. Do you have any hard evidence to back up your claims? He asked as he began to stand up. Naruto inwardly groaned. Unless you have someone that can view my memories or something, then no, I don't, said Naruto. His mood was dampened when the Sandaime asked for more evidence. Actually, started the Sandaime, causing Naruto to perk up. We do have someone that can view your memories to verify whether or not you're lying. Naruto blinked. So did the other Biju. Why the crap didn't I think of that from the start? He soon began belittling himself. After a while, who is it? Inoichi Yamanaka. Inoichi Yaman, muttered Naruto, saying the name that felt familiar. He then blinked. Oh, you mean Ino's dad? The Sandaime looked at Naruto closely. Yes, Ino's dad, he said slowly. Seeing Naruto's confused expression, he decided to not press the matter. We'll schedule it next week. Jiraiya will be there as well as myself. Are you guys okay with this? The whole mind reading thing? Anyo. It's fine, Naruto-san, answered Isobu quietly. Don't worry Naruto-san, we can always hide deeper into your mind if you don't want them to find out about us, said Kakuo. Or we can give them a welcome they'll never forget. Awahaha! Cackled Shukaku madly. Yeah, shouted Chomei and Seiken, we'll be the best welcoming committee there is. Then they'll have to believe us. Naruto and the other 6 Biju sweat dropped at their declarations. What did I get myself into? They all asked themselves. Back to the real world, why next week? You've had a long day. You've been out for nearly 15 days. Seeing Naruto's shocked look, he continued. Save your strength and rest. The doctors will be with you soon. And with that, the Sandaime began walking toward the door and opening it. Taking one last glance at Naruto, he then steps out and closed the door behind him. Once the Sandaime left, Naruto had only one thing to say about the whole thing. That went better than I thought. And soon, he closes his eyes and fell asleep. With the Sandaime, as Sarutobi closes the door behind him, he then stares straight ahead. After a moment, did you get all of that Jiraiya? Suddenly, the space besides him materializes and came the form of Jiraiya. Nodding, yeah, what do you think? Asked Sarutobi with the pipe in his mouth. Well, Jiraiya scratched his chin. He wasn't lying, that's for sure. But time travel? Jiraiya shook his head. It's too far-fetched. Sarutobi hemmed. He's honest. I'll give him that. And he claims to be an Uzumaki. Never heard of a blonde one before. He muttered, all of them have red hair. And his story. The events of the future. Jiraiya shrugged. Would explain the whisker markings if he claimed to be the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. He did mention using its powers a few times. Blowing out a puff of smoke, we'll just have to wait until next week then. It's the only way to prove whether or not he really is from the future. He then proceeded to walk away from Naruto's room. And if he does prove it? Asked Jiraiya. Stopping, he then turns his head halfway to look at his student. Then I pray for us all. He then turned around and continued forward. Jiraiya stood there watching the retreating figure of his sensei. Naruto Uzumaki, huh? He scratched his chin. Jiraiya then looks inside the room and saw Naruto's sleeping form. Naruto. The same name from my first ever book. I wonder. Jiraiya said out loud. Could you be the savior? Are we there yet? No. How about now? No. Now? For the last time, no. Kurama growled. Naruto pouted. Why can't you just tell me? He whined. I would like to know that as well, Kurama, said Matabi curiously. Yeah, agreed Chomei. It sounds like you're hiding something, he accused. He probably is, shouted Shukaku. I knew it, Naruto shouted. He then points a dramatic finger at Kurama. You're hiding something now aren't you? Well are ya, huh? Asked Seiken excitedly. Said Kitsune suddenly developed an eye twitch at being bombarded with questions. Luckily, Isobu decided to cut in. Anyo, I think it's best if we don't question Kurama so much everyone, he said quietly. Son Goku nodded. I agree. It would surely help with his eye-twitching problem, stated Gyuki, who raised a non-existent eyebrow at the sight of an annoyed Kurama. Secretly, he found the whole thing amusing. Said Kitsune grew a tick mark at their remarks, causing a round of snickers to go around. Smart Alec Broads. Closing his eyes and taking a couple of deep breaths so he doesn't kill everyone, Kurama was able to calm himself down. Somewhat. Focusing on the task at hand, Kurama continues leading the group toward their destination. Once they arrives, everyone, save for the Kitsune, gasped. Wow, Kakuo breathed out. Is this what I think it is? Asked Matabi. Nodding, yeah, I found this yesterday when I was wandering around, answered Kurama. Laying in front of them, hovering several meters off the ground, was where the chakra merging process was taking place. To the left was a giant blue sphere of chakra which they knew was Naruto's. To the right was a smaller sphere of white chakra which they all recognized as the sages. Both of the spheres each had a tentacle of chakra moving toward the middle where it connects to a tiny ball of light bluish-gray chakra. They could all tell that this was what Naruto's chakra will look and be like once the merging process is completed. And remember that one episode where Naruto finally fought Kurama for his chakra? Afterwards, Naruto stated that he stored the chakra somewhere in his body so he wouldn't be using it, and there was a belief scene showing where it was. This is the same concept. Stepping forward, Naruto took a closer look at the process. Whoa, he breathed out. This is totally amazing. He then tilts his head in confusion. But wait, why is it taking so long? He asked. Gyuki, being the most analytical of the group, decided to share his thoughts. It could be that your chakra is trying to adapt to the Gigi's, Naruto, he speculated. Naruto turned to face him. Gigi's chakra was always unique. That's most likely the case, said Kakuo. I don't think there was anyone throughout history that had chakra like our Gigi. Turning around to observe the process again, I guess that makes sense, he said. I mean, I never heard of white chakra. He then points at the blue sphere. Blue and red maybe, and I've seen green chakra due to Sage Mode and purple due to Orochimaru's cursed mark, but never white. Naruto shook his head. Pausing, he then realized something. Turning, hey Kurama, he called out. Yeah Kit? Is it because you're extracted from me that my healing ability is so slow? Asked Naruto. When he found out from the Sandaime yesterday that he was unconscious for nearly 3 weeks, he couldn't believe it. Usually, it takes only a few hours for him to wake up, never weeks to just regain consciousness. This was something he had to get to the bottom of. Shaking his head, no. Your Uzumaki lineage allowed you to have a stronger life force and faster regeneration abilities than the average human. Combined with my healing abilities, you had one of, if not, the fastest recovering speed in the world, explained Kurama, in which Naruto was awestruck. Even when I'm extracted from you, like I've said, you still have a better regenerating speed than others. It just the damage to your chakra system was too severe. Hearing that, Naruto gulped. How severe? Naruto asked worriedly. Pausing to consider his answer, remember when you were performing your wind release Rasen Shuriken several times that one day for the first time without using Senjutsu? Taking a moment to recall the memories, you mean I was first trying to add wind element to the Rasengan and fighting those zombie Akatsuki guys? What was his name, Kakuzu or something? Seeing Kurama's nod, yeah. What about it? You severely damaged the chakra system in your right hand to the point where it took both me and the Slug Queen to heal you, explained the Kitsune. The other Bijus silently gasped at the sheer damage Kurama described. Wow, holy crap, were their collective thoughts. Paling at the implications, you mean that my entire chakra system is... Naruto started, shaking his head at where Naruto was going. No Kit, said Kurama, in which Naruto let out a breath of relief. The damage was severe but not that severe. It was close to that point though. Nodding as he understood how much damage he took, okay. But what does that have to do with why it's taking so long for me to heal? He asked. Because Kit, Kurama started. No matter how little, a damaged chakra system is hard to heal. Plus, your chakra can't heal your wounds when it can't even move freely in your body. Seeing Naruto's widened eyes, he continued. Currently, your body is focusing its attention on whatever injuries it can heal. It is spreading through the parts of your body where it can access in order to save you while leaving your chakra system alone since it knows you can still live without the ability to mold chakra. Not to mention it has divided itself between healing you and merging with Gigi's chakra. Well, shit, was all Naruto could say on the matter. He then raked a hand through his hair. So how long do you think it'll take me to recover? Naruto asked. Kurama hemmed and thought. I'd say a few months, give or take. Kurama answered. Turning toward the Hachibi, you're always better at the analytical stuff, Yuki. What do you think? Yuki looked at Kurama for a moment before turning toward the merging process. Nodding, that sounds about right. Turning to look at Naruto, like Kurama said, a few months, give or take, before you're fully recovered. Sighing, great. Guess that means I'll be stuck in the hospital until then, said Naruto as he hung his head and cried anime tears. Why me? He inwardly cried. The other Biju sweat dropped at the sight. He must really hate the hospital. Snickering, I wouldn't be too sure of that, Kurama said, snapping Naruto out of his depression. Seeing his interested look, I'm pretty sure we can speed up your recovery speed. Kurama said with a toothy grin. Catching on, I see. Yuki started. That could work, Kurama. Huh? Asked Naruto confused. The others were in a similar boat. What do you mean? What I mean, kid, is that we might be able to direct the chakra flow into healing your chakra system first, he explained. And if that were to happen, Yuki continued, then your chakra will be able to reach all of your injuries sooner, thus speeding up your recovery. That, started Son Goku after a while, might actually work. Wait, Naruto declared, making them turn toward him. I thought the Gigi sent just your spiritual presence. How can you use and send chakra as you're missing the physical part? Kurama shook his head. We're not using or sending chakra, kid. You're right when you said we're just spirits now and we can't interact with anything physical. However, at this point, Naruto gave Kurama his full undivided attention. In your mindscape, nothing is physical. Kurama finished with a smirk, hoping Naruto caught the hint. Knowing him, probably not. Seeing Naruto's confusion, Yuki decided to elaborate further. What Kurama is trying to say is that since we can't physically help you, we can mentally. Take for example your mindscape. He gestured toward the wide area. While we're in this psyche realm, we can do anything we want. For instance, directing the flow of chakra in your body to places that needs healing, which is a mental ability, not a physical one. Oh, said Naruto and the others in unison. Well, Naruto then clapped his hands together. What are we waiting for? Ears twitching, Kurama turns to the direction whence they came in from. Actually, Kurama started, I think you're needed outside. Turning back to face Naruto, we'll handle things here. Go see what they want. Shoulders slightly slumping, fine. Naruto said. I'll go see what they want. Be back as soon as I can. And with a wave goodbye, he then exited his mindscape. After Naruto left, Kurama turned to face the Hachibi. Hey Yuki. Kurama called out, causing Yuki to face him. Do you think we can somehow give the kid the ability to use some chakra? What do you mean? He asked. You know we can't physically help him, Kurama. Yuki stated as he shook his head. Nodding, I know that. Seeing his confused expression, Kurama decided to elaborate. What I meant was, Kurama started as he points to the blue sphere containing Naruto's chakra. Do you think we can somehow set aside a small portion of unused chakra for the kid to use? Observing and considering what Kurama was getting at, the Hachibi took a moment to analyze the plan before answering. It just might be possible, Yuki said, causing Kurama to grin. From what I can see, there's a certain ratio that is required during the merging process. Right now, he points toward the side furthest away from the tentacle, that is how much chakra is being unused for the merger. I believe we can separate that and set it aside for Naruto to use. But, Matabi started, causing everyone to look at her. If there's unused chakra, then why did the Gigi say that Naruto-san can't use chakra until the merge is completed or has reached a certain point? She asked. Crossing his arms, I believe the Gigi feared the consequences of what would have happened if Naruto accidentally uses up all of his chakra, Yuki said. Turning to face the sphere, for starters, he holds up one finger. There's a certain ratio of Naruto's chakra and the Gigi's that must be maintained at all times. Second, he holds up another finger. Nothing like this has happened before, so there's no telling what will happen if the process was disturbed. And lastly, he turns around to face everyone. As mentioned before, the Jiji's chakra is unique and it may not have harmed Naruto before when he was using it, but now, he points toward the light bluish-gray sphere behind him with his thumb. It's changing and adapting to Naruto's own chakra, which makes it a complete unknown. Not to mention Naruto's body is currently doing the same thing while at the same time in a weakened state. Shaking his head, with those unknown variables, there's no telling what would happen should the merger be disrupted. Silence fell upon the group as Gyuki finished explaining the consequences. Finally, so what should we do then? Asked Son Goku after a moment of silence. Turning back to face the blue sphere, I think I'll try and figure out how much chakra can be separated for Naruto to use. He then turns his head toward the group. Why don't you get started on speeding up his recovery? Gyuki suggested. The Biju turned to look at each other before turning back to Gyuki and nodding. Alright, they said before breaking off into pairs and walking off in different directions. Outside his mindscape, slowly opening his eyes, and completely unaware of the conversation that took place after he left his mindscape, Naruto saw bright, yellow sunlight shining in through the window. Must be noon, he deducted. I see you're finally awake, a voice said, which he recognized as the Sandame's. Turning his head toward the voice, he saw him sitting in a chair smoking on his pipe. How are you feeling? He asked, while holding the pipe in one hand. After the first day that Naruto has woken up, the Sandame have been making frequent visits whenever he can to keep the blonde accompanied as well as listen to the future events that was bound to happen. When he wasn't visiting, Naruto would sometimes talk with the Anbu guards and caretakers to pass the time or sleep. Over the week, the possibility of Naruto being a threat was becoming less and less as they detected nothing but honesty coming from the blonde. Still, it never hurt to be cautious. Awful. Naruto answered truthfully. I hate the hospital. Sandame chuckled. I see. Just like Natsumi and Kushina, he mused. Considering the state you're in, I'm sure you won't be leaving anytime soon. Hearing that caused Naruto to groan. He then turns to stare at the ceiling. After a moment of silence, do you believe me, Gigi? Naruto asked softly. Blowing out a puff, while your story does seem far-fetched, it does have some merit, the Sandame replied, causing Naruto to look at him with a slightly hopeful expression. Regardless, he continued, until we have actual proof, we can't use your story to validate your claims, the Sandame said, avoiding the question and causing Naruto's mood to deflate. I understand, Naruto said softly. Looking up at the Sandame, so how long until Ino's dad gets here? Inoichi will be arriving shortly, he answered. Blowing out a puff of smoke, Jiraiya will be here soon as well. Naruto perked up at hearing that his godfather was coming. Really? Naruto asked, his voice almost cracking. He really missed the pervy sage. He didn't know that Jiraiya was his godfather until he read his first book and when his parents later mentioned it to him. As if on cue, the window in the room slid up and in came the form of one white-haired toad sage. Sorry I'm late, he said as he stepping into the room via window. He then took in the scene in front of him. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. Jiraiya said with a wide grin. Eyes watering and voice crackling, pervy sage, he breathed out. Said person face faulted at his nickname. Oi brat, don't you know who I am? He asked before he broke off into kabuki poses. I'm the hermit from Mount Myoboku. The wise and immortal spirit. It is I, the toad sage Jiraiya. Silence engulfed the room, until Naruto scoffed. Maybe, but you still chase women's skirts to get those ideas for those smuts you called books, pervy sage. Naruto said cheekily with a wide grin, causing Jiraiya to face fault again, the Sandame to chuckled, and the hidden Anbu to silently laugh. Standing up and brushing the dust off, disrespectful brats. No respects for their elders, he grumbled. Pointing toward the toad sage and ignoring the pain from doing so, I'll respect you when you finally stop peeking on the women's bathhouse you perverted, old man. Oi, brat, who are you calling perverted, old man? You big pervert. Oi, I'm not just a pervert, I'm. Yeah we know, Naruto interrupted as he rolled his eyes. You're a super pervert from Mount Myoboku. The wise and perverted toad sage, Jiraiya. Naruto exclaimed mockingly. Inwardly, he was laughing. He just couldn't help it. Growing a tick mark, oi. Jiraiya shouted. At least do the kabuki poses and get the introduction right. The other's sweat dropped. He didn't even deny being a super pervert or an old man, were their collective thoughts. Though inwardly, hey, the kid's story might be true after all. Don't ever think I felt this comfortable around a stranger this fast before, Jiraiya mused. Interesting, the Sandaime mused as he took in the scene. They might have just officially met, but Naruto showed an undeniable familiarity with Jiraiya-kun already. He then turns his head to look at Naruto. Perhaps his story wasn't so far-fetched after all. Suddenly, a knock came from the door, causing all commotions to cease. "Come in." Sliding the door open, Inoichi walked into the room before closing the door behind. Facing the Sandaime, he bowed. "Hokage-sama," he greeted. Facing Jiraiya, he gave another bow. "Jiraiya-sama." He then turned to the person he would be reading on and narrowed his eyes. So it's true. Hokage-sama and Jiraiya-sama was right. He does look like the Yondaime. Inoichi then mentally compared the image of the Yondaime with Naruto. "Naruto Uzumaki, huh? I see you've finally arrived, Inoichi-san," the Sandaime started. With another bow, "Hi," he said, before he walked forward toward Naruto. Turning to face the Sandaime and Jiraiya, "Whenever you're ready, I'll perform the jutsu and we'll enter his memories." Nodding, "Right. But before we start," the Sandaime said, causing everyone to look at him. "I trust that you'll all keep what we see in there a secret." "Hi," they all answered. "Very well. Continue, Inoichi-san." "Hi." Inoichi then began weaving the hand signs for the technique. "Wait," Naruto shouted, causing all of them to look at him. "Would it be okay if I join you?" Seeing their suspicious looks, he continued. "I'll let you see my memories, but there are just some things I'd rather you not know about just yet. Like why I have 9 Biju inside of me." The trio exchanged looks before nodding in agreement. "Alright," Inoichi said. He then resumed the hand signs. Once he was finished, he looked at the Sandaime and Jiraiya before nodding. Seeing that Inoichi was ready, the two of them placed a hand on his shoulders. Once he felt them making contact, Inoichi then placed a hand on Naruto's head before whispering the jutsu's name. Psyche Mind Transmission. Inside Naruto's mindscape, instead of appearing in the sewers where all the Biju are, which Naruto was thankful for, they appeared at the beginning of an endless hallway with countless doors on both sides. "Wow," Naruto breathed out. "So this is where all of my memories are?" he asked out loud. Nodding, "Yes," Inoichi answered. "Because you agreed to let us enter your mind, we have more access to the information we seek." He then proceeded forward toward the closest door with the others in tow. "Childhood memories," Inoichi said, answering the unasked questions. Opening it, they saw Naruto's childhood. How he was alone for most of his life. How he was shunned, scorned, ignored, mistreated. How he resorted to pranking to gain people's attention. The pranks he pulled. Laughing, that's classic kid. Jiraiya guffawed as he saw what Naruto did to the Hokage monument, especially his sensei. Inoichi had an amused smile. The Sandaime just shook his head. What is it with Uzumaki's and pranks? He wondered as memories of Kushina pranks as well as Natsume's entered his mind. Although, the similarities of his and Natsume's lives are just uncanny, he mused when he thought back to how they were both treated. Closing it, they then proceed to the next door, which happens to be the night the Mizuki incident occurred. Just like Natsume's, the Sandaime muttered, but they all heard him. "So her name is Natsumi, huh?" Naruto filed it for later. Natsumi Uzumaki. Proceeding forward, they then came to Naruto's memories when he first had his C-ranked mission, which later then turned A-ranked. "First C-ranked turn A-ranked?" Jiraiya asked. He then shook his head. "You have some lousy luck, kid," Jiraiya said as he watched Team 7 take on Zabuza and his apprentice. They then saw Naruto meeting Haku for the first time and what Haku's definition of strength was. Signing, "I know. It's like Kami hated me or something." As if on cue, they then witnessed Naruto losing the Kyuubi chakra for the first time and unleashing on Haku. Turning toward Inoichi, "Can you verify whether or not this is real?" asked the Sandaime. Shaking his head, "No need, Hokage-sama. The moment Naruto-san allowed us to enter his memories freely, all mental barriers were removed," he explained. He then turns to watch the fight take place. "All of this," he gestured with his hands, "is real. It's actually happened," Inoichi stated, albeit a little grimly. Jiraiya hemmed and thought. "I see," was all the Sandaime could say before they moved on, making a note to ask the whereabouts of the current Team 7 once they get out of here. It was such a sheer coincidence that they left on a mission to Wave a week ago. The next door revealed the event that took place during the Chunin exams. Aibiki, Jiraiya said out loud as he watched Naruto take the written test. Seeing how people were being intimidated and leaving in the masses got a chuckled out of Jiraiya. Still up to the same old tricks I see. Shaking his head, I still can't believe you would do that. I thought I was going to fail the exams. Naruto exclaimed. I can see why, Jiraiya said with a smirk. You didn't answer a single question. Huffing and crossing his arms, exams are evil. His response got them all to chuckle a bit before they saw the next scene. It was where Orochimaru attacked Team 7. Orochimaru, the Sandaime said quietly. If this actually happened, then it will happen again, Inoichi said grimly. It's only a few weeks away. And it seems he's after the Sharingan, Jiraiya stated as he crossed his arms as they saw Orochimaru only showing interest in Sasuke. He was also making note of Naruto when he was using the Kyuubi's chakra. Seems he can only access it when in a deep emotion state. Interesting. I wonder if Natsumi will be the same. He then burst out laughing as he saw the next scene. Really, kid? Jiraiya asked. They were watching the fight between Naruto and Kiba where Naruto revealed his secret technique in Kiba's face. The Sandaime chuckled while Inoichi shook his head with an amused smile. Blushing, it was an accident, he tried to defend himself. Chuckling, sure it was kid. They then saw Naruto making a blood vow to win against Neji after he injured Hinata. So, Jiraiya started with a lecherous grin. You got a thing for the Hyuga heir, I see. The Sandaime and Inoichi merely chuckled and shook their heads. What? No, denied Naruto with a tomato-red face. Ah, young love. Moving on, they then came to the next door where it showed Naruto training before the third round. The Sandaime chuckled. Some things will never change, he said as he saw Jiraiya peeking on the women bathhouse. Jiraiya, of course, had the decency to look sheepish. They then saw the wild goose chase Jiraiya set up for Naruto resulting in Naruto winning. Specifically the part where he dropped his panda henge after Naruto left, only for him to appear again and scaring the toad hermit. Chuckling, really now Jiraiya-kun. Letting Naruto getting the drop on you like that, the Sandaime chided. Jiraiya meanwhile scoffed. I must have had my guard down, he tried to defend himself. Naruto rolled his eyes. Right, they then saw Jiraiya agreeing to train Naruto for the duration of the week. So I let you sign the toad summoning contract? Jiraiya asked. Yup, Naruto answered. It was hard at first but it got easier later on, he said as they saw him summoning tadpoles for a while before normal-sized toads. They then saw Jiraiya explaining to Naruto the other chakra inside of him and then pushing him off the cliff. Speaking of, ow, Jiraiya yelled as he nursed his head. What the hell was that for, brat? That was for pushing me off the cliff, pervy sage. Hey, it worked, didn't it? Pointing toward the scene of where Naruto had to stay on top of Gamabunta until sunset. Yeah. It worked real well, he deadpanned. Shaking his head, the Sandaime then moved on to the next door which held the third round of the Chunin exams. So you're up against a Hyuga, huh? Jiraiya said as he watched the fight unfold. Nodding, yeah, Neji was crazy good. If I didn't have the Kyuubi chakra inside of me, that was close. I would have lost. Luckily, everyone was too busy watching the match to avoid his almost slip up. Scratching his chin, so improved strength, speed, healing and durability, huh? Jiraiya wondered out loud while making mental notes of all the Kyuubi chakra abilities for future references. So Orochimaru planned an invasion involving both Suna and Otto, I see. The Sandaime said while blowing a puff of smoke out. How you have fallen, my dear student. They saw Naruto chasing after Sasuke and fighting Gaara. Interesting. They sent the Jinchuriki of the Ichibi to participate in the exams and invasion. Jiraiya said out loud. Looking at the battle, did you ever once had a normal life, Naruto-san? Inoichi asked. Or a mission for that matter? He then gestured to the scenes of Naruto riding on Gamabunta fighting Shukaku. Sighing, sadly no. He then hung his head. The next scene they saw was the aftermath. Looks like Orochimaru killed you, sensei. Jiraiya stated grimly. The Sandaime, however, didn't reply and instead lower his hat. Orochimaru was always a sore subject for him. After all, what could you do when your favorite student and when you looked at as a son figure sudden betrayed the village you love? However, he raised his hat when the next scene came of where Jiraiya and Naruto was on the road searching for Tsunade. At a town, he saw a face he thought he'd never see again. Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki. Akatsuki huh? Jiraiya said while crossing his arms and having a serious expression on. Then came the scene where Sasuke arrived and charged at Itachi only for him to be completely overpowered. Seeing what Itachi had to do made the Sandaime stiffen and his heart to ache. Seeing how his sensei to acting at this, Jiraiya narrowed his eyes. "What are you hiding exactly, sensei?" Jiraiya inwardly asked before filing it away for later. He then witnessed the scene where he was teaching Naruto the Rasengan. Toads and the Yondaime's signature jutsu huh? Jiraiya mused. Turning to face Naruto, "Anything else I passed on to you, kid?" "Yeah, but I'm not telling you." Naruto replied cheekily. Jiraiya had an eye twitch as his reply before turning his attention back to the memories. "Haim is still as short-tempered as always." He then chuckled. "Brings back memories, doesn't it, sensei?" Nodding, "Indeed it does," replied the Sandaime. All three weren't happy when they hear what Orochimaru promised Tsunade, but they were more surprised when they saw the confrontation. Turning toward Naruto, "You mastered the Rasengan in a week?" Jiraiya asked in disbelief. "Well," Naruto started, "it was technically a month, but yeah. I mastered it in that amount of time." Tilting his head, "Why?" Jiraiya stood there gaping like a fish while the Sandaime and Inoichi stared at him as if he grew a second head of something. Finally, snapping out of his stupor, Jiraiya then shook his head while muttering about, "Damn blonde geniuses." Naruto of course heard him and had the decency to look sheepish. The next door revealed an intense match between Naruto and Sasuke leading up to him fleeing Konoha. Shaking his head, the thought of Kakashi teaching him the Chidori. Nodding grimly, "It's an assassination technique. One that shouldn't be used on comrades, especially not on that scale," the Sandaime stated. "We should have made sure he received frequent checkups on his mind," Inoichi said while shaking his head. "If we had known the state he was in due to the mental trauma, perhaps we could have prevented this." He then pointed toward the scene where Sasuke was using the cursed mark stage 2 on Naruto while he was in his chakra cloak. "We could always start now," Jiraiya suggested, not taking his eyes off of the chakra cloak. "Wouldn't that raise suspicions?" Inoichi asked. Jiraiya just hemmed in thought and moved on to the next door. Behind it was the 2.5 years training trip to prepare for the Akatsuki and save Sasuke. So improvements over the normal-sized Rasengan as well as Genjutsu Dispel and Taijutsu training huh? Not to mention honing other skills. Nodding, "Not bad." Turning toward Naruto, "I see I passed a lot of stuff down to you, kid." Beaming, "Of course. You are my godfather after all," Naruto said with a wide smile. Jiraiya stared at him for a while before he smiled as well. "Hey, maybe kid, just maybe." He then watched the scene where Naruto and Sakura took on Kakashi to see their standing. You have the skills to maybe be a Jonin by then." Turning to face Naruto, "How are you still a Genin?" he asked. Shrugging, "I have no idea." Naruto answered honestly. Jiraiya and the Sandaime exchanged looks before nodding. The next scene revealed Naruto's team traveling to Suna to rescue Gaara. "So he became the case cage huh?" Jiraiya asked. "Yeah, I still can't believe he beat me into becoming a cage." Naruto then pouted and crossed his arms. Secretly, he was really happy for Gaara when he first heard the news. "The two of you seems quite close," observed the Sandaime. "Befriending the cage of a foreign village, I see. Interesting indeed, Naruto Uzumaki. Not to mention becoming close with the princesses of other nations. The will of fire burns deeply within you, Naruto-kun." Whatever doubts he had now, they were soon fading. Turning to face him, "Jinchuriki gotta stick together, right, Gigi?" The Sandaime chuckled before nodding. "Indeed." Jiraiya whistled. "Wow, brat. Saving a cage and befriending him, not to mention the other princesses as well." Turning to face the younger blonde, "Tell me, ever had a girlfriend?" Sputtering at the totally irrelevant question, what? What does that have to do with anything?" Shaking his head in disbelief, "Oh, you poor naive boy. There's still much to teach you," Jiraiya said sagely. "Oh hell no." Only to be completely rejected by Naruto, who had an irking as to what he was talking about. Moving on, they came to see Naruto meeting Sasuke for the first time in over 2 years. It was at this point that Jiraiya finally took out his notebook and began writing down notes about Sasuke, Kyuubi, Akatsuki, and other events they'll need to know in the future. Seems like our friend been busy. Jiraiya stated with narrowed eyes as he observed Sasuke. Using drugs and medication to speed up his growth, I see. Nodding, indeed. He was never one to use natural means, the Sandaime stated. And Danzo still has his root agents as well. They both made a mental note of that tidbit. They soon came upon the door in which Naruto was excited about. "What up with you, kid?" Jiraiya asked. Smiling, "I completed the jutsu," was all Naruto said. Jiraiya looked at him in confusion before turning back to the scene. When he saw what Naruto meant, his mouth hung opened and his eyes widened. The Sandaime almost dropped his pipe, and Inoichi was very interested and curious at what was about to unfold. "I call it wind release. Rasen Shuriken," Naruto stated proudly as they watched the destruction of the jutsu on the Akatsuki member, Kakuzu. Still in shock, Jiraiya stared at Naruto for what seems to be eternity. You actually. But," Jiraiya spoke incoherently. Finally, he stopped and shook his head. "Damn blonde geniuses," he said in disbelief. "You, Naruto-san, are full of surprises," Inoichi said with a smile. The Hokage on the other hand was looking at Naruto with a fond smile. "You've turned into a fine shinobi, Naruto. You parents would be proud." As much as he tried to keep an open mind, there was no denying the traits that Naruto inherited from both Minato and Kushina. Embarrassed by the praise, Naruto gave a sheepish look. Hee, thanks." The next scene revealed the group sending out to capture Itachi in order to lure Sasuke. Jiraiya just couldn't help but spare glances at Naruto out of the corners of his eyes. He reminded Jiraiya too much of himself when Orochimaru left the village. Of course, he soon snapped out of his musings when he saw a plant-like creature and a masked man both in Akatsuki cloaks. He quickly began analyzing their abilities and writing it down on his notebook. Upon seeing the familiar glowing, red eyes, he gasped. "Another Uchiha?" he asked in disbelief. Inoichi and the Sandaime narrowed their eyes as well. "It seems he specializes in spacetime ninjutsu," the Sandaime said. "Any ideas on who it could be?" Inoichi asked. Shakes of heads was his answer, except for Naruto, who remained quiet. Regardless, they knew they would get answers soon. Moving on to the next door, they came to see Naruto hearing the news about Jiraiya's death. Gasping, "I am impossible," he shouted in disbelief. "Those three died long ago." "It's true," Naruto said quietly, his head down as he remembered his interactions with them. "Only Yahiko died. Nagato and Konan both lived and are members of the Akatsuki." Seeing the state his student was in, "Is there something special about them?" the Sandaime asked. Narrowing his eyes, "I took the three of them in for a while during the Second Great Shinobi War and trained them. Sometime after I left, I received a note that they all died in action." He then shook his head. "I believed that Nagato was the child of prophecy as foretold by the great Toad Elder." Turning to face his student, "What made you believe Nagato was the savior?" Turning to face his sensei, "He was, or from the information we just now received, is the bearer of the Rinnegan." Inoichi gasped and the Sandaime dropped his pipe when he heard this but quickly caught it. "The legendary eyes of the Rakudo Sennin?" Nodding, "Yes, the same eyes. I see," was all the Sandaime said before smoking on his pipe. Not that anybody can blame him. Moving on, they saw the depression Naruto was in when he learned of Jiraiya's death. "Hey pervy sage," Naruto called out quietly. Facing Naruto, "Yeah kid?" Avoiding his gaze, "Can you not go to aim this time around?" Naruto asked softly with a sad look. Hearing the tone in Naruto's voice caused Jiraiya's expression to soften a bit. Turning around toward the front, "Sure kid. Whatever you want." Beaming at the declaration, he then lunged himself at Jiraiya to hug him. "Thanks pervy sage." Laughing, alright, get off me kid." Though inwardly, "So godson huh?" He smiled affectionately at Naruto. They then came to the scene where Naruto begins his sage training with the toads. "Senjutsu too?" Jiraiya asked. He then shook his head. "You really are something brat," he said with a smile. Though inwardly he was proud. "The kid surpassed me in senjutsu. I could never enter sage mode without having some frog features or without assistance from the elders. And it seems he found a creative way to gather nature chakra without having the elders attached to him." Chuckling inwardly, "This kid. He really is something else." Completed Minato's technique and fully mastered Sage Mode. I take that back. The kid might have already surpassed me. His smile turned fondly. You really are Minato's brat, aren't you, Naruto? Smiling, thanks pervy sage. Jiraiya then saw the elder Toad, Fukasaku, handing Naruto the first book he ever published. The Tales of the Gutsy Ninja, huh? He then chuckled, smiling a warm smile, of course. It's my favorite book. Naruto answered softly. You did name the main character after me. Jiraiya smiled. That I did. The Sandaime and Inoichi could help but feel a smile growing on their face as they watched the duo. Later, they witnessed the destruction Nagato, or rather pain, caused when Naruto returned. Grimacing, so that's the power of the Rinnegan, the Sandaime said solemnly. Jiraiya hemmed. Yes, but why are there 6 Rinnegan bearers? He then turned toward Naruto, expecting him to answer. Naruto started as he scratched his head. It's one of the Rinnegan's powers. When Nagato was pain, as in still wanted to capture all the Biju, Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at his words since it meant Nagato changed in the future. He called himself the 6 Paths of Pain. Each of the pain have their own unique ability and can be controlled from a distance. They're like walking corpses. The trio inwardly shuddered at that. And Nagato was the 7th pain. I don't remember what abilities the other had, but Nagato himself can bring people back from the dead. The others nodded at his explanation. Though it had holes, it was still useful information. They then turned back to watch the fight between Naruto and Pain. Turning to face Naruto, you can throw that thing? Jiraiya asked in amazement after he witnessed Naruto launching a Rasen Shuriken at Pain. Yup, Naruto chirped, but only when I'm in Sage Mode or something, he shrugged. So, that's one of the powers, huh? The Sandaime said. Chakra absorption. Interesting. Summoning and access to souls too, it seems, Inoichi joined in. Don't forget gravity, mechanization, and access to King of Hell, Jiraiya added grimly. Nobody said anything for a while. Intel, a powerful opponent indeed, said the Hokage. They then watched as Naruto began using the Kyuubi. Even with the Kyuubi, Jiraiya said as he shook his head. Nagato can still match it. Interesting, the Hokage muttered. I've never seen that before. It's called version 2 form. Naruto said, answering the unasked question. Then what's version 1? Jiraiya asked curiously. It's what you called a chakra cloak. Naruto answered. Recalling the image, Jiraiya nodded. I see. He then continued taking his notes on the scenes. They then watched as Naruto went up to 8 tails and almost released the Kyuubi. That is, until Minato? Jiraiya and the Sandaime asked in disbelief. Nodding, yeah, Dad seals some of his chakra inside me as well as Mom's. Snapping toward Naruto, Kushina too? They asked. Naruto nodded. Yes, but that won't happen until much later on. They watched the scene played out until they heard the words Minato said. So that masked man, Inoichi started, released and controlled the Kyuubi. Jiraiya continued, and killed Minato, Kushina, and my wife, Bawako Sarutobi, all on the same night. The Sandaime finished while clenching his hands. Turning to face Naruto, who is the Uchiha? He demanded. Knowing that this was a sensitive object, Naruto decided to answer truthfully. With a sigh, his name is Obito. Obito Uchiha, Kakashi's presumed dead teammate who goes under the alias of Madara Uchiha. He then looked at all of them straight in the eyes. And the real mastermind behind the Akatsuki. Silence engulfed the group as Naruto told the identity of the masked man. Nobody said a word as they took Naruto's words in. Finally, I see. The Sandaime said wearily. It has been a rather emotional day for him. Placing a hand on his sensei's shoulder. Do you want to call it a day, sensei? Jiraiya asked in concern, shaking his head. No. Let finish this. Nodding, the group then proceed forward to the next door. Only for Naruto to quickly stand in front of them. Sorry, Naruto said, but I rather we not look through here. He glanced at the Sandaime, which didn't go unnoticed. Inoichi narrows his eyes slightly and stared at Naruto for a while before nodding. Very well, Naruto-san. We'll continue on. Nodding a thank, Naruto then followed Inoichi down the hallway while walking beside the Sandaime. What was it that you didn't want them to see, Naruto? Asked the Sandaime quietly. Stiffing a little, it was about Itachi. Naruto answered softly. He knew Itachi never wants the truths about that night to come out of hiding. Understanding, I see. He then puts a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Thank you for your consideration. Smiling, no problem, Gigi. What they didn't realize was Jiraiya having heard the conversation. Itachi, huh? Guess I'll ask Sensei about this later. The next door they came to reveal the place Naruto went to harness the Kyuubi's chakra. In meeting Killer Bee, his rapping, Jiraiya started in shock. Those lyrics, Inoichi continued, also in shock. That eccentricity. The Sandaime added, also in a similar state. He's like a Kumo version of Maida Guy, they all finished in unison. They soon snapped out of their stupor when Bee effortlessly entered Tailed Beast, showing them the Hachibi in all its glory. What? They all exclaimed. Seeing their surprise, Naruto decided to elaborate. It's true, he started, causing the trio to turn toward him. Octopop is the first person to befriend a Biju and enter Tailed Beast mode. Octopop? Inoichi asked. Naruto shrugged. We're both Jinchuriki, good friends, and he's older than me. He's also like an uncle and holds an octopus like Biju, hence Octopop. The trio's sweat dropped at his explanation, though the Sandaime was inwardly impressed. It seems no matter where he goes or who he meets, he has the uncanny ability to befriend those around him. Kumo and Konoha never really gotten along, but with him befriending the Raikage's brother. The Sandaime inwardly chuckled. You never cease to amaze me, Naruto-kun. If only your parents were here to see you now, the Sandaime mused with a sad smile. Next, they saw Naruto's attempt in taming the power of the Kyuubi. Such frightful powers, Inoichi muttered in awe. The Sandaime grunted in agreement. And to think, Minato only sealed half of its powers away. And to think it still has this much energy left, muttered Jiraiya. Naruto absent-mindedly rubbed his stomach from where Kurama's tails hit him. But what came after really shocked them to the core. As Naruto was losing, chakra chains and a face they knew all too well appeared. Kushina-san, Kushina-kun? The three exclaimed. All were in silence until Jiraiya and the Sandaime started chuckling. That Minato. Though the kid was pulling my leg when he made the claim earlier, Jiraiya said while shaking his head. Minato-kun was always talented, especially with seals, the Sandaime started. And I think what we've seen here is all the proof we need. Inoichi nodded in agreement. Jiraiya hemmed in agreement before a smile broke out on his face. She's still a beauty, even after her death. Wouldn't you agree, Naruto? Upon seeing his mother once more, Naruto's eyes softened as he gazed on the loving form of his mother who gave her life for him. Upon hearing Jiraiya's question, yeah, he answered softly. She is. The adults smiled when they saw his face, but also felt a bit of sadness when they realized he never gotten to talk to her face to face in the living world. Would you like to continue this at a later time, Naruto-kun? Asked the Sandaime in concern. Shaking his head and wiping his eyes, no Gigi. Let's continue. But first, do you all believe in me now? Taking a moment to glance at each other, they then reply in unison. Of course. After all, how were they able to deny what actually happened after witnessing it from Naruto's memories? Naruto's face broke out into a smile. Thank you. At least now, I can tell them the truth. Walking up to Naruto, Jiraiya put him into a headlock before ruffling his head. Don't be getting soft on us, brat. Oi! Naruto shouted as he tries to free himself. Chuckling at the scene, the Sandaime and Inoichi then moved forward, knowing the duo would follow soon. The next door they came to held the memories of the Fourth Great Shinobi War. The Fourth Great Shinobi War, huh? The Sandaime muttered while blowing on his pipe. Even then, there's still war that taints the peace we've created. A never-ending cycle of hatred, Jiraiya added. Will the world ever come at peace? Inoichi asked no one in particular. If there's ever such a thing as peace, I'll find it. The trio turned their head toward the voice, with Jiraiya's eyes widening because of the line. After all, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, a name given to me by my godfather, and born from two great heroes, Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, whom, like others, entrusted their wills toward me, and foretold as the child of prophecy by the great Toad Elders of Mount Myoboku. Naruto paused, before his lips quirked up. And lastly, the boy who would one day befriend all the Biju and play with them. After his declaration, everyone was looking at him in a different light. What they saw in front of them was not a boy, nor was it a man. No, what they saw was a hero. A hero that has overcome many trials and wanted only one thing in the world. The one thing that mattered the most above everything else. The one thing that this world desperately needed. Peace. Though, they managed to shake out of their stupor after they replayed his short speech in their head. What did you mean by? Only for Naruto to shake his head and nodding ahead of him. Look for yourself. The trio looked at each other before opening the door and witnessing what happened during the 4th grade Shinobi War. The only thing they had to say about it was it made the other wars pale in comparison. I can't believe the Akatsuki used animations of our former comrades to fight, Inoichi growled as he clenched his hands and gritted his teeth in anger. Jiraiya meanwhile narrowed his eyes at the entire war, whereas the Sandaime lowered his hat when he saw a reanimated Asuma Sarutobi fighting against his team. Naruto on the other hand stayed silent, leaving the adults to their own thoughts. The next scene shows the attacks by the White Zetsu clone army against the allied shinobi force. Those things are an abomination, Inoichi claimed. True, and their ability to completely copy someone's chakra signature is quite problematic, said Jiraiya as he rubbed his chin in thought. Any weaknesses? Asked the Sandaime. Well, started Naruto. The only weakness they have is that they're not a combat type but rather built for espionage. By themselves, if we were to face them head-on, they're not much of a threat. But if they were to impose as someone else, then we'll have a hard time figuring who's who, Inoichi finished with a grim face. Yes, and it seems the allied shinobi force are learning that the hard way, the Sandaime added with an equally grim look. Any way to spot them? Asked Jiraiya. Naruto shook his head. Unless you can sense ill intent like I can, you won't be able to tell the difference easily. Their scent and chakra are perfect copies of whoever they want. The group fell in silence after that, content in watching the events unfold before their very eyes. I still can't believe that one of Minato's brats caused all of this, Jiraiya commented when referring to Obito. Naruto shrugged, earning questioning looks from the trio. Wasn't his fault, you know. Seeing how they were going to ask, you'll see it soon. With that, they returned their attention toward the scene. I still find it hard to believe all 5 great nations banded together and can form a working unit, commented Inoichi. Well, when you have a common enemy, it's not unusual for 2 or more groups to team up to deal with the threat, the Sandaime spoke from experience. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, Jiraiya said wisely. They then watched in silence as they witnessed the battle against Obito, then Madara, then an even stronger Obito, and then an even stronger Madara. Oh Kami. No one said anything. Those 2 words reflected what the adults were thinking at the moment. After a while, well, started Jiraiya. That would explain your state after arriving here, he joked, trying to relieve the tension. That's not all, Naruto replied in a low voice which everyone heard. What happened next was something they would never forget. Is that, started Inoichi. It is, Jiraiya confirmed. So that's the sage of the 6th path, muttered the Sandaime. And apparently, the brat here is his son's incarnation, Asura. How very interesting indeed. After the sage of the 6th path gifted Naruto half of his powers, they saw him and Sasuke teaming up against Madara and winning. That is, until Kagaya showed up. Turning to face Naruto, do you ever face normal opponent Naruto-san? Asked Inoichi. Taking a few moments to recall his history, he then blinked. You saw it yourself, Ino's dad. Kami hates me for some reason. Still shaking his head in disbelief, then refocus his attention back on the scene. You might be right on that, brat, Jiraiya muttered as Kagaya was overwhelming the duo. Not that Kami. Naruto eye rolled at the very poor attempt of a joke. After it was over, which the trio were very glad of, they then saw the finale. The last battle between friends, Jiraiya muttered in a soft whisper. It's just like me and Orochimaru. The battle was intense to say the least. The adults were surprised at how much energy Naruto still had after defeating so many enemies in a row and then some. Of course, what they saw at the end shocked them. He killed his best friend. Inoichi was shaking in anger. He truly has gone down the path of no return, Jiraiya said while shaking his head. The only one who didn't make any comment was the Sandaime, who was watching the scene played out. Yes, the powers that were shown shows the Hokage just how dire the future was and how outmatched they all were. They all had to rely on a handful of people just to win the war for them. Speaking of which, Naruto-kun, he called out, making everyone turns their attention toward him. How exactly did you survive that? We all saw him kill you. Naruto meanwhile just had a sad smile on. I did died, but I was given another chance. The reason why I asked if you trusted me was so I can show you this. The next scene they saw, they had no words. So you're telling me that you were brought back to life because the Biju, all 9 of them, convinced the sage to give you another chance? And currently, the whereabouts of all 9 Biju are sealed within you? Not to mention your chakra is becoming one with that of the sages? Naruto looked at Inoichi, then the Sandame, and lastly Jiraiya respectively as they asked away questions. To answer your question in that particular order. Yes, only they're spiritual beings, and yes. They then looked at each other, trying to process what just happened. I see what you mean when you said you're from here but at the same time you're not, claimed the Sandame as he blows out a puff of smoke. It seems the sage of the 6 paths used a dimension travel jutsu on you to send you here on a new start. Naruto nodded. Is it possible for us to see them, Naruto-san? Asked Inoichi. Naruto thought about it for a moment, but before he could do anything, they all felt themselves being pulled against their will. The next thing they knew, they stood in a sewer. Surrounding them on all sides were all 9 Biju. Hi, Kurama greeted, showing them his teeth. The reactions varied. Inoichi took a step back. Jiraiya hardened his eyes. The Sandame was subtle, building up chakra. Naruto meanwhile shook his head at his partner's antic. Oi, knock it off, Kurama, you're scaring them, said Biju. Clicked his tongue. TCK, you're no fun. Oi, I'm plenty of fun. Stupid and fun are 2 different things. Stupid things are usually fun. Did you just call yourself stupid? I have a right to not answer that question. What's this? Trouble in paradise? Cackled Shukaku. Stay out of it, stay out of it. Make me popcorn? Chomei asked as he offered it to Seiken. Don't mind if I do, Seiken replied in kind. Matabi and Gyuki on the other hand merely sighed. Should we break them up? Asked the octopus-like creature while pointing toward the fight between Naruto, Shukaku, and Kurama. If we must. Again, responded Matabi. Ahem. Turning their heads and ceasing whatever they were doing, they came upon the sights of a flabbergasted Inoichi, a blinking Jiraiya, and an exasperated Sandame who wasn't really surprised knowing Natsumi and Naruto were one and the same. As interesting as this is, continued the Sandame, I believe our business here is done. Unless we need to know anything else, Naruto-kun? Upon seeing his head shake, then I believe we should all rest for now. I'll check up on you tomorrow, Naruto-kun, said the Sandame with a tired smile. All of them were tired actually. Today has been rather taxing on their emotions. Goodbye, Naruto-san. Inoichi gave Naruto a nod of respect. See ya, squirt. I'll visit when I can. Jiraiya gave Naruto a smile. Goodbye, Gigi. Goodbye, Ino's dad. Goodbye, pervy sage. Naruto waved back. Oi, I'm not a pervy. Whatever he was about to say, Inoichi chose that moment to end the jutsu. Well, started Naruto now that he was alone in his own mind with his companions. That went better than I thought, was all Naruto said before he promptly fell asleep, making the Biju shake their head at his antics. Outside the mindscape, once they made it back to the real world, the adults all let out a collective sigh of relief. You know, when I agreed to this, I thought the kid was maybe hallucinating or was a spy that could be handled rather easily. Now, Jiraiya gestured toward Naruto's sleeping form. The Sandame and Inoichi nodded in agreement. They signed up much more than they bargained for. However, now that they all knew what's to come, they can better prepare themselves. They can prevent that godforsaken future from ever happening and save so much needed life here. They can change the future and might be able to finally bring everlasting peace. At least we now know Naruto-kun isn't a spy but rather a hero. A hero that was thrust into the world with no saying it in and was expected to fulfill his role in destiny no matter what. It's too bad they'll never know of what he's done. He's been denied the respect and recognition for too long. And when he finally had it, it was taken away from him soon after. Again, the 2 of them agreed to Jiraiya's statement. And to top it all off, he's been sent back in time through another dimension to save the world once more. There's only so much a person can do under pressure before they break. For now, let's keep everything we learned between us. The less people who knows about it, the better. Jiraiya and Inoichi agreed with the Sandame. And I propose we not take any actions as of yet. Naruto should be there when we decide our course of action. He deserves that much. I don't have a problem with it, Gigi. Neither do all. Hokage-sama. The Sandame nodded. Good. Now, we've had a long day. Why don't you both take the day off? We'll attend to this matter another time. Sounds great. As you wish, Hokage-sama. Turning toward the hidden Anbu, make sure Naruto-kun is properly taken care of. He is our ally, not our enemy. Also, make sure that nobody enters this room who isn't Jiraiya, Inoichi, or myself. He must be kept a secret for now. Hi, Hokage-sama, responded the Anbu hidden around the room. Now if you'd excuse, I'd like to. Before he could finish, an Anbu appeared before him in a kneeled position. Forgive my interruptions, Hokage-sama. The Sandame nodded. Go on. Hi. Team 7 has just returned from a C-ranked turned A-ranked mission and wish to report to you as soon as possible. Upon hearing that from the Anbu, Jiraiya, Inoichi, and the Sandame stiffen. Was this, perchance, the mission to Wave? Jiraiya asked the Anbu. Hi, Jiraiya-sama. Very well, said the Sandame after he regained his composure. Tell them I'll be on my way. Hi. And with that he disappeared. Walking toward the door, he turns the handle and opened the door before looking back toward the two other people who knew of the future. It seemed we might have to decide a course of action much sooner than expected. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.